Hello, everyone. I need to pull up the chat room to see who might be here. And as you can see, it's just me right now, waiting for others to join. There we go. Dun, dun, dun. Right. Getting the chat popped out, so to speak. Going back to there. And boom. And we're on. Yes, we are. Micah. Hello, main man Micah, Mike Kuipers, Simon Vett, Owen Finnegan, Ashley Edwards, Simon Vett. Oh, I already said Simon Vett. Aaron Ort, Tim Lake, first time watcher and chatter. All right. I think you'll have a good time, Tim. James Balch. Oh, I didn't hear that Nikki Lauda passed. What happened? I didn't even know he was sick. Frank Chandler. Let me scroll back up. Plane Safety Podcast. I don't know who that is. Lisboa. How you doing, Nelson? Let's see. Frank Chandler already mentioned you. Liz. Glad that you made it back. Literally just walked in the door from her whirlwind weekend trip to the UK. Excellent. Neville Bounds. He must be somebody new to our community. I don't recognize the name. John Bretch. Hey, man. Railroad John. Salt Lake City, Utah, huh, Ashley? That's cool. Salt Lake. My favorite Mexican restaurants there. I bet you can guess which one that is. They have great movies. Let's see, who did I miss here when I scrolled up? Steve A. Where's Steve? Oh, Steve Andrews. Hey, man. You're out in LA, right, Steve? What is Liz talking about? Something that happened this weekend? Huh. Greg Peterson. Howdy. It's lonely out here. Ashley, come on. Couldn't be that lonely. Nick is trying to sort out his something he calls a router. I don't know what the heck that is. I guess his internet service is acting up. So he has been talking with the provider. Steph has just picked up something from a store and she is heading home. She should be joining us soon. And speaking of the devil,
hello.
There he is.
I'm the devil.
Even wearing red.
Yes.
Well, appropriately.
I have got my I've got an Airbus t-shirt on. And I'm gonna wear a Boeing hat. That way I can cover all bases.
Ah, I like it. So I noticed in the background there's a really nice piece of art you have hanging on the wall.
Oh, isn't it fantastic?
Yes.
I'm so chuffed. It looks brilliant. It really is a lovely piece of work.
So we'll definitely talk about that in the intro portion.
Oh yeah, I can't wait. That is, and it was such a lovely surprise. It really was. I really choked up when it, when I was given that and realized how generous everyone had been and what a wonderful time it was. It was absolutely brilliant.
Well, I'm glad you liked it. I wish I could have been there, but just didn't work out with my schedule.
Oh, well, it would have been fantastic, but just having Liz there was just icing on the cake. I had no idea that she was going to make the journey. So
yeah, she was really pretty good about keeping it all mum.
Yes, mum's the name. And she bought some lovely gifts too. And, well, I mean, I'm just all a bit overwhelmed about the whole thing, quite honestly. It's been absolutely wonderful.
Excellent. Hello, Paul in Cincinnati. I'm just up the road from you. I'm in Dayton, Ohio. Let's see. I was just mentioning that Steph will be joining us soon, probably another 15 minutes or so. When she gets home, she's going to have to. Her brothers are visiting from Utah, and one of them, Mikey, has taken over her office. And so she said, "Trust me, you don't want to see what he's done to my office with yeah." And so she's going to head down to her lakeside studio on something portable, I guess.
Well,
Dana,
mosquitoes aren't too bad.
Dana's being it wasn't bad at all. I spent probably a good 6 hours down at the lake, and it was there. I didn't have one mosquito bite.
Oh, brilliant! Oh,
so
excellent.
They've done whatever is necessary to keep mosquitoes away. Yeah, not a mosquito bite.
Very cool.
But Dana is down in Florida, the villages where old people get their sex on, and apparently,
perfect place for him.
I know. And apparently, one of his friends had needed some help. I think his truck broke down.
In Florida.
Well, yeah, well, no, it's aside from that.
Okay.
I guess there was some kind of a motor vehicle issue, and the guy didn't have any kind of towing service. So Dana is rescuing him. He's being the good Samaritan.
Oh, well,
so he said that he's going to try to join us later if he can, but his internet is not great.
No, I saw the results of his speed test. They were worse than mine were like 2 minutes ago. Luckily, the guy on the end of the phone was very quick, set me up with a new net on a different frequency and said, right, connect to that. And boom, it came back again. So
oh, good.
I'm fingers crossed it carries on for the evening. But
here I'm in a hotel. So there you go.
Oh, right. Okay.
You know, you never know what's going to happen here. I've had mixed results myself with the speed test. Right now, I believe I'm on the hotel Wi-Fi on this machine, which is the Hangout, and I also have the hotspot on my phone for a backup in case it all goes wonky. I'm really going to try hard to do as little post editing as possible, because I have something coming up very soon, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on editing the show. So
we'll try and keep it clean.
Yeah, keep it clean, and we'll keep
slick.
Keep it slick, keep it perfect.
There you go.
Anyway, very good, very good. Let me make sure we have all the ducks in a row.
By the way, do I need to send you the link for every little thing, or did you spot that?
Well, I did listen to it. Where was that, in the chat?
It was, I think, yeah, it was in the chat, and also I put it out on Facebook and Twitter thing.
It was good that you were able to be on a network that probably won't be around for very long. Seriously, these big companies that come in and they have hundreds of millions of dollars and they spend and they think they're going to do something big in podcasting, and then they finally run out of money and then they disappear.
Well, that would be very sad.
I mean, these shows like the one you were on, producers and like lots of people working.
Oh yeah, I mean there was a presenter plus sound engineer and editing, and
to me that's not a
couple
podcast.
Of producers.
That's just a radio show that they're putting on the internet.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, I agree, but still, the important thing was we got our plug in.
That's good. Yeah, I wasn't sure that you were going to be able to. And in fact, I was toward the end of it, I'm thinking, oh, darn, they didn't even mention the Airline Pilot Guy show. And then there was a mention of it at the very
end. At the end. Yeah, you got to stick to the bitter end, but at least we got it in there. So I thought, well, the words
out. In fact, I was actually sending you like an iMessage, like, didn't they even mention the podcast? And then all of a sudden I hear the guy with the really weird, deep voice saying, for more airline chat,
Yeah, exactly. He could
Follow
have,
Nick Anderson on the Airline Pilot Guy podcast.
yeah. So how they'll find me there, I don't. Oh, us there, I don't know. But there you go. Anyway, it was fun doing it.
No, you did a great job. You represented well.
Thank you, sir.
I'm trying to find the link to it, but we have a lot of conversation in our back channel.
Want me to send it to you again? Because I've got it in an email.
Yeah.
Okay,
Please.
let me grab it.
That'll be a lot easier.
Yeah. There we go. Right. Control copy.
Oh, your internet makes all kinds of weird noises.
Does it? Yeah, that's the door opening. Right.
All right.
Whoosh. There she goes.
Where am I supposed to be looking for it?
Crew chat.
Oh, I see it. Cockpit confessions.
Yes.
The truth. I think, the captain, what was her name?
I think it was Sandy or something.
Sandy, something like that. Yeah, she did okay. I think that you came across much more credible to me.
Well, she hadn't done that much airline work. She'd done 10 years, I think, but she stayed in the regionals, and now she has more fun, I think. And what's more, she does all sorts of things. Yeah, Sandy, that's right.
Yeah.
Thanks, Liz. She does all sorts of things, including dropping parachutists. But she did mention that she held a few world records. That was right at the beginning, before the show really went live, and I was going, "Oh, that's interesting."
What world records?
I don't know. She never got the chance to explain. Okay. It's not like I could quiz her because we're working through the presenter.
Right. You couldn't be the interviewer since you were the interviewee.
Say, oh, world records? What are those? Well, hang on a minute. I know what a world record is. No, what did you do? And I've got a huge glass of whiskey. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
With a lovely that's a present, another present from Liz. Can you see there's a dog on the front?
Yes, very beautiful.
Exactly. Well, she gave me 4 glasses, each with an individual engraving. And this one says Dog Spirit Wiesler. So it's specific to our doggies, which I think is fantastic.
Dog spit?
Dog spit. How dare you describe Liz's lovely card whiskey as dog spit? Dog Spirit.
Oh, Spirit. I'm sorry.
Dog Spirit.
Must have been a little interruption in the flow of
digits. It must have been, yeah. Then there's another one here called Energetic. And then there's Gentle and there's Playful. So there's all the kind of Wiesler moods. And actually it
Humping Your Leg, was that one? Yeah. That would be energetic.
Oh dear. You're in a playful mood, young sir.
I know.
What did I get for? I downloaded that one. 16.
Well, I have nothing to drink.
You've nothing to drink? Oh Lord. You've got empty glass. Are you working or are you just
I call it
not Lent, is it?
No, it's just hadn't had a chance to. I literally got to my room and just set things up, and guess what? It's time to do the show.
Wow, you poor chap.
I know. I haven't had lunch.
Oh no! I mean, I came out of. I'd been sitting around going, "Let's watch the last installment of Madam Secretary," and which I suppose I'll have to rename Madam President soon. And I thought, oh, well, that's fine. I'll give myself an hour to set up and read all the notes and stuff. And I spent that whole hour trying to get the internet fixed.
Oh man!
As soon as I logged on and did a speed check, which would be fine earlier in the day, I went, oh, blast.
Well, it's just Murphy's Law.
Exactly.
When it's time to do a podcast, that's when it all goes bad.
Yeah. Well,
okay,
so how Steph's getting on?
Well, I was thinking, I wonder if we should just start and then she can join us.
Sure.
Or we could wait a little bit longer.
Sure.
She's probably listening to us right now. Steph, send us a text and let us know. Should we start the show and then you just join whenever you join, or do you want us to wait a little bit longer? Are you close to being here?
That's what she said.
Yes. Are you close to arriving?
Mm.
Right. I have a little treat from Miami Hick.
Uh-oh. I'm wearing my Boeing hat, Miami. Give me a break now.
It's all poking fun at the glorious Mad Dog.
Oh no, really? Oh
Yeah, that's all right. I'm used to it. I don't care. See, that's the thing. I really don't care what jet I'm flying, as long as I'm making good money and I have control over my schedule. They're all great airplanes to me. Let's see. Nick C, where are you? I think Nick C is at home. I think he said he was going to be off for a couple of weeks. He's been very busy. You want to follow his escapades, you can be an APG slacker, and you can see, you can look up the C-47 D-Day Epic, I think is the name of the channel. Hillel came up with some kind of crazy name. Dun, 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 dun. Oh, the flight attendant, the head flight attendant, or the that's probably not a good term. The purser,
flight attendant head,
the flight attendant in charge. She on the flight up from Atlanta to Dayton. She lives in Knoxville, and her fiance is a pilot for Cirrus Jet. They have a big center, a big sales center and distribution center or something like that in Knoxville, Tennessee, which is a beautiful place, by the way. And I overheard the conversation between my first officer, Patricia, and herself talking about this guy, her soon-to-be husband, and simulators, and what a great company that Cirrus is. I was looking at the chat. Nelson says Steph is parking her Cirrus jet on floats. Don't think they have one of those yet, but wouldn't that be cool?
Sounds like, yeah, that sounds very cool. Yeah.
Let's see. From just outside Nashville, Tennessee. Okay, Tim. Do you live on a lake, Tim? Wouldn't that be appropriate? His last name's Lake. I suppose it's about time for Captain Nick and I to figure out a Duxford meetup. Yeah, that's about time.
Where are you reading that?
In the chat.
My chat seems to have disconnected. I might have to restart it.
Oh, no.
I've got nothing there. All right. That's probably because my machine... Oh, yes, it went down for a while. YouTube page. That's probably because... Oh, shut up, Anderson.
Well, what time we have here? 21. Let's give it a few more minutes and then we'll start.
Okay.
Let me do some sound checks here. Oh, let's see. Get Radio Roger in here.
WAPG. It's the Airline Pilot Guy.
Airline Pilot Guy, episode 376.
Yeah, he's up in the sky.
Is it a little bit too loud?
I'm deaf.
Pardon me?
Probably Steph would say that's a little loud.
Okay. What about those of you in the chat room?
Is it the 21st?
$1,000. $500.
fairly loud.
It's supposed to be.
Yeah, but there is a limit.
Thank you, Liz. Dun, 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 dun. Too bad. We should have Liz join us. Why don't you do that, Liz? You want to join us on the show?
Great idea.
She may not be in the mood for that. If you want to, you know how to do it. Okay, so we have that. I have the
she's pooped herself.
tube. Oh no, how embarrassing.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's
Okay.
what happens when you do a lot of international travel. I know just how that happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she did.
I seem to remember I used to fly all the way into New York and then
But it's
run off the
different.
airplane, sprint off the bus, straight to my room, bang, 3-hour show.
Yeah. But it's tough just sitting there in your business class seat, fully reclined, drinking champagne, and
listening to podcasts and movies, and
I wonder,
it's a tough old life.
Did she get an upgrade on the way back?
She bid and got the front end both out and back. Yeah,
very nice.
I think she was in row 3D or something. So,
oh dear.
Mind you, it's a 777, so it's probably a pretty ropey old seat.
Oh, are you kidding me? That's a great airplane.
At least she's in front of the engines. That should be nice and quiet.
Oh, Stephanie Plummer.
Wow.
Guess what? My audio is not connected correctly.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
that
never
happens.
Wouldn't have guessed. How did that occur?
That's usually the second
and
or third
one
sentence.
of my lights in my office won't turn on either. I don't know why.
That's because your brother's been in there.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but what about all the other times?
I don't know.
Can't blame it on him.
No.
I'm sure we can if we try.
Well, we can. It just wouldn't be fair.
Hello.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Mike.
What's that?
No, nothing that you need to know about.
Okay. It's fine.
Jeff, check your messages on your phone, says main man.
Well, I checked it on my computer, actually.
Oh, right, okay.
But it's the same thing. It's messages. Much easier on the computer, Micah. But it goes to the same place.
MBF called me up at 4:30 in the morning. Does he not understand time zones, Liz? Oh, my God. Bunting frame. You fool. Fool of a took.
All right.
Tap your mic, Steph. No.
Hold on.
I bet it was.
No.
Nope.
Yes. No. No.
Unplug it and plug it back in again.
Yeah, I'm gonna actually usually what I need to do is quit the hangout.
Okay.
And then come back because it needs to like reset somehow.
Okay.
How about now?
Hey!
You're on it.
There's this one dark corner of my room too, but I guess that's how it's gonna be.
That's not bad.
It's not bad. Usually it's much brighter over here.
Uh-huh.
Oh, well.
Okay. So, I don't know. Did you hear what I said about Dana being the Good Samaritan, helping out a friend
No.
in need? Yeah. Down in Florida, in the villages or something, and one of his friends down there broke down, and his vehicle broke down. So
Yeah.
Dana's giving him some help. So he said he may be able to join us later in the broadcast, and if he
Okay.
does, it's going to be audio only because
Audio, yeah, because his
not
internet has
very
not
good
been
up-
good. Yeah.
No,
Maybe I
guess the
will
guy there.
tag out at that point and he can tag in and we'll see what happens.
Okay. Yeah, that's
I'll
right.
call
We
him
should
again.
say that Steph won't be able to stay with us the entire
Probably
time.
not. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have house guests and a lot of stuff going on. So,
Yeah,
but
completely understand.
gonna have this beer now because
Ooh, that sounds
I'm
good.
running around all day and it's about 93 degrees outside.
Oh, Dana just
Hot.
sent us
That's
a
funny. I know. I see that.
photo.
Oh, it was the boat trip. Oh, that's the worst.
Yeah, that's not a lot of fun.
That's not fun. It's a bummer.
Dana, you're a good friend.
yes,
Good friend.
indeed.
Okay, a friend in need is a friend indeed.
Mm-hmm.
Can't get the lug bolts off the spare. Oh no.
Right.
That's no good.
No, they'll figure it out. I have faith.
Looks
Set
like it's a
line
nice
to it,
day there
Dana.
though.
Yeah, it looks like it is here, hot and humid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here in Dayton, it's like 58, which is very
Just
nice.
snowed in Salt Lake on the benches. Gross, Ashley.
Oh,
Where
really?
in the benches are you, Ashley? I should say I went to Brighton High School.
Is the benches like a place?
Yeah, so like how Salt Lake's kind of a big fishbowl?
Yeah.
So if you're up on the side of the fishbowl, that's the benches.
Oh,
It's not any one particular town. West side. Okay. Other side.
interesting. Never heard that term.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Very good. Okay. Oh, Ashley is appalled with the messy
The mess in my office.
Sorry, Ashley.
It's better. The mess in my office. I am too, actually. It's
I
a little
was
better.
expecting a lot worse based
No,
on
he
your
came in.
description.
He came in and cleaned it while I was taking care of a few other things. While I was sorting out supplies, he came in and he's moved all of his laundry to right underneath my feet. So I have to deal with it, but you all can't see it. He goes, "Wait,
Yeah.
is this going to be on video?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Give me a few minutes." I was like, "Okay, fine."
Excellent.
All right. Well, I think we should start.
Sure.
All right, here we go. Liz, looks like about 31:30 or so ish. Oh, you know what? Gosh darn it. The whole darn
Recorders.
time. The whole darn time I could have been setting this darn thing up.
Yeah, and we need 10 recorders on.
We've been on YouTube for a half an hour. Yeah, forget what I said, Liz. We're not starting right now.
What were you
We're
doing
just-
while you were waiting on
We're
me?
just talking. We're
Yeah, yakking.
yakking with the chat room folks.
Mhm.
Nothing wrong with that, right?
Yak.
Yakety yak.
This dark corner is really bothering me.
Yeah, shoot. Darn it. What is going on here? APG record. Okay, there we go. Open recent. Of course, now the fan's going crazy. I apologize, folks. Okay, what happened to it?
Why is that light not? Oh, because someone unplugged it. Mikey. Mikey.
Mikey!
Boy.
Damn you.
Hey, it's brighter now.
Oh, hi.
nice.
You are there.
Yeah.
Okay, default input XR18.
I'm not entirely sure why all the Oh, I bet he tried to plug his phone charger into that and it wouldn't work because you have to use Alexa to turn it on.
Ah,
Oh,
well,
couldn't
that's
figure
Bet
that
that was
out, huh?
confusing. Bet that was confusing for him.
yeah.
What is wrong with her
Yeah. You have
electrical
this
outlets?
weird plug and it doesn't work.
Okay, it's going to be mono and
Ah,
9,
that beer is so wonderful.
10.
I'm on the whiskey tonight.
Ooh.
Who said that?
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Good luck, Jeff. I won't be here to supervise the end of however this turns out. So
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Wow. 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 That's,
strong stuff, huh?
Woo!
What kind
Is
of
that
whiskey?
which whiskey is it?
This is the Cardew that Liz.
Oh,
Yes.
Scotch whiskey, right?
Oh, yes.
Single malt Scotch whiskey.
12-year-old. Very nice.
Excellent. Excellent.
1824. I was just adding 12 to 1824 and saying, well, it's not 1836. How can it's only 12 years? But there you go.
That's
Mm.
odd.
Mm.
It's from Morrisshire.
Here I come to save
Save the day.
The voice is sounding different, Steph.
This is actually much better. Jeff can probably actually attest
Yeah,
to
she could
that.
hardly speak a couple
On-
days ago.
Saturday. Yeah. And it's actually significantly better than it was on Friday. So
Well, it sounds interesting. You sound like a Hollywood actress. I can't remember her name.
a Hollywood actress who's smoked, since she was 10, basically.
Yeah,
something like that.
sexy.
On that 50-pack year history at the age
Yeah.
of 37.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very sexy voice.
Thanks.
Very sexy.
I'm just glad
cigarette
that I
voice.
can produce sound without having to yell. That was just getting really annoying. You know how hard that is when you have to talk and you have to just yell all the time just to produce enough sound to be heard. I was exhausted at the end of the day on Friday.
Yeah.
All right.
Mine was allergies, Jen. Definitely allergies. So,
Yeah, I had allergies too.
Yeah.
Called in sick
Lauren
without last.
Bacall.
Yeah, a little
Lauren
Lauren
Bacall.
Bacall-y. I could see that.
Okay, we ready?
Ready.
Okay.
Oh, are we clap? Oh, where did my?
Yep.
What happened? I had audio hijack running, and now it has just completely disappeared. Hold on. Sorry.
Well, I have a feeling
ready.
like
I'm
the
ready.
sunshine's
Yeah.
going to leave too here, so it's
376.
probably going to get really dark.
Hold on. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. I had it running, and while we were talking, it just completely decided to.
Stop.
It just disappeared entirely.
Ah,
Here we go. Hold on. Come back. Come back.
come back. All is forgiven.
Well, hopefully, we won't have to
Oh,
use
no,
it.
I don't want that one.
That's right. It's okay.
Said the actress to the bishop.
I don't want that one.
Yes, you do. That's the one you want.
Oh, that's the old version that I can't get to go away. It still lives on my computer somewhere.
Oh, my arms are getting tired.
Jennifer Lawrence. Who thinks
I
that
don't think
Jennifer
she sounds
Lawrence
that.
is- No.
Maybe. There we go. Start record. Okay. Got it.
Okay. Are we ready?
Yep.
3, 2, 1. Okay.
Yep.
There we go.
Sounded awful over here, but there you go.
It was
Well, that's a
pretty
good
close
sign.
here.
That's a good sign if it sounded bad there. Okay. And I wonder why that didn't play. Okay. Don't worry about that, Jeff. All right, here we go.
APG.
Nope.
WAPG. It's the airline pilot guy.
Airline Pilot Guy, episode 376.
Yeah, he's up in the sky.
listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show, the view from our side of the cockpit door, with your host, Captain Jeff, broadcasting live from Studio 4G at the Crown Plaza Hotel in Dayton, Ohio. Today's show is recorded on the 21st of May, 2019.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the Airline Pilot Guy. Get you right and he's flying by. With the Airline Pilot Guy.
In today's episode, 2 crop duster pilots die when their planes collide in California. New details on a Jetstar A320, which initiated a non-standard go-around in Sydney. And a student pilot in Australia loses consciousness for 40 minutes. More news, your feedback, and in today's Plane Tales, I counted them all out. So get all settled in, tray tables and seat backs in the upright and locked positions. Electronic devices powered on. I'm Radio Roger, and Flight 376 is ready for pushback.
Thank you, Radio Roger, a real-life radio professional in the world's largest radio market, New York City. We do appreciate that. And I am Captain Jeff, the host of the show here. I am an airline pilot, and I'm a guy, hence the Airline Pilot Guy. And I'm, as Roger just said, in Dayton, Ohio, the birthplace of aviation. I think. Right? Yeah, okay, I was expecting that. You heard that lovely voice in the background going, well, from her lakeside studio in South Carolina. She's a doctor, a skydiver, marathon runner, strength training junkie, IPA connoisseur, and commercial multi-engine instrument-rated pilot. It's the lovely Dr. Steph.
Hey, Captain Jeff. I don't know about lovely voice today. My apologies for people are going, who is that and what have you done with Dr. Steph? Allergies got the better of me last week, and I don't know, at least you can hear me today, so we'll give this a go.
Yeah, sounds pretty good, I think. All right. And also joining us from his studio on the English countryside, he's a professional photographer, a former RAF, RAAF fighter pilot, and former captain for an international airline based in London. Captain Nick.
Did you say former captain? I've still got 11 days, no, 10 days left
I'm not
to go.
dead yet.
Okay,
I'm not dead
forget
yet.
that then. Current
Anyway,
captain then.
Thank you very much. Even though I'm not actually going to step on the flight deck wearing my stripes ever again. So anyway, lovely to see you. Great to be back on the show. Looking forward to it.
Excellent. And Dana may end up joining us a little bit later in the show. Right now, he is being a good Samaritan for a good friend of his. And hopefully we'll hear from him. He is on the road in Florida. Actually, he is literally on the road.
On the side of the road.
On the side of the road with right next to a boat on a trailer. And anyway, so I'm sure we'll hear about that at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so welcome to the Airline Pilot Guy Show. It's a kind of a talk show podcast where we talk about stuff in the news and kind of add our commentary to it. And also we answer a lot of folks' questions and feedback. And here we are. So the first part of the show here, we usually do a little bit of a catch up and see what people have been doing. And I don't think really much has happened at all since the last episode. So why don't we go ahead and just move right on into
Yep, right into the news.
The news. Here we go. Oh, wait a minute. Hang on.
Stand by for news.
Of course, I'm kidding. There has been a lot of stuff that has happened.
I'm not saying a word.
So, who wants to start off with the festivities that occurred on Sunday in a town somewhere near London in the UK?
I don't know. Steph, do you want to try?
Well, I think I was actually invited to this one, but I couldn't make it, unfortunately. So I don't have all the details. You might have to fill us in, Nick.
I was a little disappointed not to see you popping out from behind some
For
door.
the second weekend in a row.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I would have
Jeff,
come, Nick, but I was not invited. So
That's
there
true.
we go.
Well, I did actually make that request to the organisers, but
Okay, I thought so.
Now, wait a minute. You're telling us you knew about this event?
no, I knew nothing about
So
it.
he
It
said,
was,
in case you were thinking about doing some kind of a big
just in
soiree,
case.
Don't
Yeah,
invite
please.
Jeff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
please
that-
make sure it's just the nice people that come.
Jeff guy, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I'd love to have seen you both there, and Dana, of course. But Liz, however, managed to make the journey over and represented you wonderfully. So let me try and explain. It was just a quiet week, and Jilly had organized for my old friend, Captain Nige, who was with us when we did our pre-Farnborough show last week. We went up to his place, you'll remember, and did the show from his house. Beautiful house, not far from Riyadh. And then Nige came with us to Riyadh, and we had a wonderful time. Anyway, Nige wanted to come down and do the return half of the visit, so we had him booked in for the weekend. And I thought, well, that's be fun. And I said to Jilly, look, Nige is coming down, but it's like for 3 days. I need to play a game of bowls on Sunday afternoon. So I'll just disappear for a few hours. You can entertain them. And she looked at me and her eyes went wide and she said, no. I said, sorry?
Bit it.
She said, well, no, he's got all this effort to come down. The least you could do is be, here. And I'm going, oh,
I'm in the
okay.
doghouse.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I didn't
all
realize
right.
that was going to be such a problem. For
I know. I thought, well, it'll only be a few hours. It's a league match, and the boys are desperate to have me on board. So anyway, I went, okay. She said, no. Ricky and Doug are coming to lunch. We're all going out to a nice pub for lunch. So I went, okay, all right, fair enough. Anyway, when I came downstairs and we were about to set off to go to this pub, I looked at everybody and they're all dolled up to the nines. And I'm sort of scruffing around in shorts and an old T-shirt. And I went, do I need to get changed? Jilly said, yeah, that'd be nice. We've made an effort. So I went upstairs and
we didn't tell you we were going to make an effort, but so you can see
no,
what we've done.
I don't know why they didn't tell me. So I went upstairs and put a shirt and jacket and trousers on and nice shoes and came back down and we drove off to the pub. And on the way in, I spotted a lovely old Wiesler. And, our old girl's just died. And I thought, oh, well, I've got to go and say hello to this lovely old Wiesler, chatted to the owners and petted this Wiesler for a little while and turned around and expected to see everyone in the pub. And they're all standing there at the front of this pub just glaring at me. What is going on? Anyway, regardless, I stepped in. I tried to turn left to go and get a drink. And Nigel said, no, they're serving the drinks down here. And
you go, what?
Nah, I've been to this pub. There's no bar down there. What's going on? Anyway, so I dutifully walked down. And as I came around the corner, I suddenly saw a pair of heads disappear behind a wall. And I thought, hello. My spidey senses are tingling. And as I came around the corner, there was this huge array of happy, friendly faces and huge cameras, which obscured most of Nev's face, and lots of lovely friends who were there with a surprise party. Big table laid out. It was fabulous.
Now, I have some audio from this. Actually, it's the audio from a video that Nev took, and they mixed, and the video will be made available. I'm sure there are many different places that we can see it. But I'm going to play. You think it would be okay if I played some of that audio?
I'd be great, particularly if you've got everyone's names, because I'm going to struggle. There was
so I think that you're going to hear most of these names in this audio, Nick. So
super.
Here we go. This starts off with, if you can imagine the setting, it's a lovely booth that two beautiful individuals are sitting in. And here we go.
Hi everybody, it's Nev here from the Plane Talking UK podcast, and I'm at the Renaissance Hotel in London, very near Heathrow Airport. Look who I've got next to me. It's Liz Piper. Hi Liz.
Hi Nev.
What on earth are you doing here?
Well, I was driving past the airport in Toronto on Friday and I ended up on a plane.
Wow.
And here I am.
Fantastic. So what are we going to do today?
Well, I heard there was some kind of event going on. Maybe in honor of Captain Nick. So we're going to go down and see what that's all about.
Very cool. Well, we've got a video crew over at the pub in Petersfield where we're going to. So let's hand over to you, Matt.
Yes, thanks, Nev. Hi. Yes, we are live here at the Trooper Inn. We're in a little place called Froxfield, just off the A3. So absolutely beautiful village, beautiful. We've been really lucky with the weather, really sunny. So really can't wait. Nick's due probably in about an hour's time, something like that. So we're very much looking forward to the big surprise on his face.
Oh, I want to yeah.
Surprise!
Liz, what are you doing? Oh, hi, everybody. Auntie. How are you? I'm good. What are you doing here?
I don't know. I just found my way here.
Hi, friend. Matt. Hi, brilliant. Adam. Hi, son.
Nice to meet you. I thought you just your husband off in the night.
Yeah, that's Fifi, mate. Liz.
Hello, Matt. This is with me.
Lots of stuff going on.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm very good.
So did you have any idea at all?
Not really, no. Oh, I did actually keep someone peeking around the corner a moment ago. So that gave me a clue. I thought that's very odd behaviour for the average.
Especially around
pub.
these parts, you know.
Exactly right, yes. Oh, isn't this brilliant? Aren't you nice? Thank you very much. I don't know quite what to say. Stop recording.
And it came to me, but at the time, it was longer and colder, and I think
You're sitting at this big, large dining room table. Lots of great conversation.
I'm just going to show you a traditional RF thing. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to celebrate the end of a remarkable aviation career. Young Nick, Captain Nick, Squadron Leader Nick, Glider Pilot Nick. Just to put it in context first, I'd just like to say that Nick has been a bit like a bad penny or a bad smell. He's recurred throughout my life at various crises points, just so that you know why Lou, Valerie, and I are sitting here. I first met Nick on a parade ground at RAF Henlow. He was on Yellow Squadron, and the good guys were on Blue Squadron.
What squadron were you on?
Blue Squadron. Naturally. Oh, I fell into that one, didn't I? Shut up, drink more red one. Prior to that, Nick had been in the Air Training Corps, and he'd got his Silver Sea flying Sedberg gliders, swapping cockpits with people mid-flight just for fun in tandem. Was it side by side? So he was a bit of a reprobate before we met him. And then the good guys met him when we got to RAF North Luffenham for our aeromedical training. And there was this Yellow Squadron guy who was coming on our flying course to be 4-course. And Nick and I sort of bonded during 4-course. He drove a motorbike for a start, which helped. The only problem was he was a bit of an antisocial person, because at weekends he used to go off to see his girlfriend, where is she down there? I think she was a teacher at Teacher Training College down in Winchester or somewhere, where I had no idea where that was. And we survived Dick Maysfield and everything that the RAF could throw us at 4-course RAF Linton on News, Jet Provost Mark 3s, Jet Provost Mark 5s. And I think we started with about 20. and we ended up with 10. And of the 10, there are still 7 alive. And I did invite the other 5, but they said not bloody likely. After that, we had a break between basic jet training on jet promise and going to advanced flying training school. The last thing I needed right then was a girlfriend, because I'd nearly fallen out of the course on basic training. And we had about a couple of months off, and Nick rings me up one, I think it was an Easter holiday or a May Day holiday. He says, "Hey, Nigel, you want to meet for a beer at the Bear Green pub?" Was it King's Head on the A24, I think. And I said, "Sure, mate." Yeah, because it's sort of halfway between Guildford and where I was staying with my mum. And he says, "Well, I'll bring Jilly." And I think you're still engaged at that point. I said, "Sure." And Jilly's bringing a friend. So that was the first number one marker in my life. Here we are, 42 years later or whatever. So Nick introduced me to my wife-to-be. Thank you, Nick, for that.
It was Julie's fault. Don't forget that these two were at teacher training college together.
And I found out where Winchester was. Then we went through flying training, and then we went down to Haverfordwest. I think we both got married somewhere along the way.
Oh, we were married.
Yeah, that's right. And it didn't take long in those days, is it? 22-year-old, well, being married going out 11 months, let's get married for the rest of our lives, right? Seems to work. And so then we're down in Haverfordwest. There is a tactical weapons unit where you learn to kill people. Up until that point, you've been learning how to try and stay alive. And Nick wasn't very good at dropping bombs, but he's very good at shooting bullets at other aeroplanes. So he went off to air defenders. Actually, the real reason was because he kept getting lost around Wales. And
that's true.
And,
that's the real reason.
And they said, "You need a navigator in the back seat, mate."
Best we give you a navigator.
So they gave him a navigator. We went our ways, he went his way. And about 3 years later, we'd both been kicked off our first squadron thinking, "We're cool." And we end up going to RAF Leeming and meeting to become flying instructors. We were both a bit disgruntled about that. And that's where we met Dave, DL, down there. And we went off to flying training school, and Nick and I went through the course together. And we're now trying to be responsible pilots, showing people how to fly aeroplanes. And so Valley being Valley at RAF Anglesey tend to get a bit fogged out. And the weather was poor. And so Nick came up with this bright idea, let's go to Lucas. I've got mates up at Lucas and we can have a barrel of beer. So we somehow persuaded the flight commander to send us off to Lucas. We were going to practice something on the way there, have a couple of beers, practice something on the way back. And so we were super keen to be leaving all this behind. So we jump in the aeroplane, whole row of Hawk airplanes. We walk out. He goes around the left side. I go around the right side. We jump in the airplane, whiz off, land at Lucas at the other end. And now we're really in beer mode. Let's go get a beer. And I said, "Okay, Nick, check the fatigue meters." He goes in the nose bay. He goes 127, 336. Says, no, that doesn't work. And then we realized we'd come in the wrong aeroplane. So at that point, Nick bravely rang up the flight commander, and we turned around and he orders.
You did say wait till the end of the weekend, didn't you?
I did.
And did I listen to you?
No. So he rang up Dave Nelson. Dave Nelson said, "Yeah, we know. Get your ass back here." So we got straight in the aeroplane.
No beer.
No beer.
We did not get 200 pounds. We did not.
Wrong way Ferguson didn't. That was wrong plane. And I was going to give him absolute. Well, it's all your fault, Nick. But I did look in my logbook, and I was the captain. And then later on, I decided to go parachuting, and Nick is the second person to be by my bedside when I wake up. And I think, okay, Nick, thank you very much for being here when I've ejected from an aeroplane. And then I eventually go out of the Air Force and I go to Hong Kong, And I get fired by my airline for the first time, I might add. And and guess who's there when I get fired? Nick.
I just had to land, and Nigel says, "You wanted some news? They've just fired me."
So I can safely say that if you want a good friend, Nick's a good friend, but he makes your life a lot more exciting. Nick, now after his shaky start, climbing from cockpit to cockpit on the Sedberg or whatever it was in a glider, he has amassed about 20,000 hours, and he doesn't know how many, because he lost his logbook because he's not digitally competent, and his navigator didn't tell him how to do it. Nick's got about 20,000 hours. I have to give him a lot of kudos because he doesn't have 1 hour on a Boeing. He might have flown McDonnell Douglas, but he never flew a Boeing, and so that's his claim to fame, or one of his claims to fame. Fortunately, having kept in touch with him, I've learned that he's a pretty good raconteur, which is how you guys have got to know him, I think. And at this point, I'm handing the raconteur over to Nick to do a shorter speech than I've done, I hope.
I have to start by thanking you all for making the great effort to come and join me. This was very unexpected and a real pleasure to see you all. Liz flew all the way from Toronto. I can't believe it. Thank you very much, Liz.
My pleasure.
Dave and Fee, I haven't seen them for years, and that was such a surprise. We've got air traffic from Heathrow, who I thought were very brave to come, Graham and Adam. And because, I have rarely had a good word to say about traffic. But yeah, to be absolutely fair, they always give as good as they get. We've got friends from PT UK, and you guys are wonderful. We love you. Got my 2 sons here. Hey, hi, boys. Thanks so much. And my darling wife, who has sat beside me through thick and thin for how many years now?
Only about 44.
44 years. Okay, that's not bad.
Oh, 45.
Oh, 45 now. Okay, that's good.
I was 20 when I met you, I suppose. So yeah, no, it's 44.
So 45 years of flying. Well, actually, professional flying. 48 years, I guess, since I did my first solo, and it's all come to a grinding halt. But it's made all the better because I have made some wonderful friends in the aviation community, and I will be able to live vicariously through them and through all the other friends I have. And I've had my interest, my love of aviation renewed through APG and through my friends in PT UK. And I know Pip isn't here, but he's another great friend who does another podcast, and it's made me start enjoying the whole aviation scene again, when it was getting to the point after so many years that it had become a bit stale in my mind. But that's not there anymore. Now it's lovely to meet friends and talk about old times, and spread the word that we're a great community and it's lovely to sit together. So thank you very much indeed.
Here's to you, Nick.
Lots of us have all come together to come up with a little gift that hopefully Jilly will permit you to possibly mount on your wall.
Downstairs toilet.
Well, okay. So it's behind this tablecloth. Okay. And this is just the token of all of our appreciation, all of the community's appreciation for everything you've done and entertained us and informed us. So hopefully this provides a memento of your 48 years, you said? Good. Please.
Well, thank you very much.
It's slightly delicate.
Couldn't find a clean table, huh?
No. That's for the Boeing pilots.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, wow. Oh, lovely. That's fantastic.
So hopefully you might notice it's a specific aircraft as well.
That's Foxtrot. That was the airplane and the Phantom that had my name on it. And that's F-18, and there you go. So that's beautiful. Who made this?
It's the guy who that mug that I gave you last year, Jim Walks Glider. That was he does this.
Well,
so we all commissioned him to create these pieces for you.
Oh, that is fantastic. Thank you very much indeed.
No problem at all.
Very kind.
Great, my pleasure.
Thanks very much indeed. It's absolutely fabulous.
Again, beautifully produced and created by Nev with help from Matt and others. But I think the bulk of it was Nev's doing. So very nice job. Again, that was the audio from the video. You need to watch the video. I'll probably upload that to YouTube and then have a private link for people to check it out. And as we were speaking and hearing about that piece of art that was commissioned for Nick, it's right behind Nick's left shoulder in the video. Of course, you're listening to the audio right now. You'll have to check out the video, and or I'm sure I'll put a couple of pictures in there of the surprise retirement get-together. And Nick is trying to zoom in a bit so that everybody on the live show in the live chat room can see. And Nick, do your best to explain what we're looking at there.
Well, it is the most wonderful handcrafted piece, and it's a big white and beautifully shiny board, and on it are mounted the tails of 3 aircraft that I flew. Not every aircraft I flew, but the most beloved. And there is a Phantom tail, Foxtrot. There's a Hornet tail from the Australian Air Force 77 Squadron, and there's a great big Virgin 340 tail. And the lovely thing is that not only are they beautifully made and painted, they are mounted almost in 3D. So the Phantom tail looks like it's in the distance. Then in the middle is the Hornet tail, and then standing proud right at the front is the Virgin 340 tail. I can say that now because I'm more or less retired, and they're actually mounted at different distances from the board, so they cast a bigger shadow, and it's just beautifully thought out, wonderfully made. They're all made out of aluminium, so just like the real thing. And it was just the most wonderful gift, and it touched me. I really choked up at the time because I found it very hard to speak, because I was just so taken aback with the generosity of everyone that had contributed and was there, and it just was just a lovely event and a wonderful thought. So enormous thanks to Adam, who I think was one of the main instigators who organized the gift. Of course, Nige and Jilly, who helped organize the event, but also to the contributors who made the purchase of that gift, that specially commissioned gift, possible. So you, Jeff, and Steph, and Dana, and Liz, and Dave Abbey from New York, Tanya, Tiffany, Phil Davis, Jen, Neb, Micah, Dispatcher Mike, Captain Al, who sent me a special video, congratulating me that we played at the event. There was Pip and Carlos and Matt and Myla and Rick Bell and Graham Haley, and I probably missed someone out, but that's a wonderful list of people who, in fact, Adam told me that lots of other people wanted to contribute as well, but he said it was just getting too hard to manage, so he sort of had to call a halt. So thanks to everyone who was trying to help and giving ideas. I gather there was an enormous organization behind to come up with a good idea. But that on my wall there behind me is just a fantastic reminder of my flying career, and it's going to be with me forever. It looks superb, and it's just in the perfect place, so it'll be behind me forever. And every time I look around, I can see that, and it'll bring back all sorts of wonderful memories.
All I can say is nice tails.
Yeah, and really, the way we kind of envision it is we want something from the community for you. And I know not everyone, contributed in the same way towards it, but we wanted it to reflect that. So.
Well, it certainly does, and it's the most wonderful thing, and no one else in the world will have one that is even close to that in the way of its design and how it evokes memories. For me, it's absolutely superb. So I just think it's fantastic, and of course, it was lovely to see everyone at that dinner, and then we all went back to our place, and Jilly put on a big tea of traditional English afternoon tea of scones and cream and jam. And then most people had to leave, but DL, who I'd known for 40 years and he was another Phantom pilot. We were instructors together. And Nige, of course, who I've known since almost the day I joined the Air Force. And his lovely wife, Lou, whose proper name is Valerie, but she's called Lou, so that's too hard to explain. We, and Fee, of course, we stayed behind late and drank until, I was falling asleep in my chair, and we just talked old stories and had a great day. So when it comes to retirement parties, it was perfect. And thank you to everyone for helping make it a wonderful day.
Well, it's not the end of the retirement party.
Yeah, you're not off the hook yet. There's more to come.
Yeah, this is just the first part.
I don't think I've got enough tear ducts left to cope.
Good. I'm glad they're dry. We don't need to see any of that anymore. Just celebration and yeah.
I'm glad I don't cry. I thought I'd mention that in the background.
Is that a challenge, Jeff? How many days do you have left until retirement? I think Nick and I can figure something out.
I'm sure we
can. No. I'm sure that this whole APG thing will be just a distant memory by the time I retire.
Some
do hope. But I was going to mention that in the video, everybody can see the piece of artwork that Adam commissioned, and right next to it, another piece of art that Adam commissioned. Actually, he came up with himself, and we talked about it on the last show, or maybe the show before that. The what's it called? The something of Anderson procedure, the removal, revocation,
the removal of Anderson procedures.
Of the Anderson procedures. So that's framed nicely right next to the three tail artwork there. So
absolutely. Now, I also got a wonderful gift. Well, I got several gifts, but the one I want to particularly mention, of course, because Liz, our lovely producer, managed to find another lovely bottle of Cardew whiskey. She obviously thinks I go through at least a litre a day. But I'm going to make this one last. But more importantly, with it were a lovely set of whiskey glasses that are all engraved with different scenes, different engravings of Vizsla dogs, such as I have, and they're in 4 different poses, and they're just classic of the breed, and they're a wonderful gift. And this one I'm drinking out of tonight says dog spirit, and underneath it is the Vizsla. So I think it's absolutely lovely gift. Thank you very much indeed, Liz. That's absolutely.
And I mentioned off before we started recording, my favorite is the one where the dog is humping the owner's leg. Very, very nice.
It's a little bit less traditional, but
yeah, it's called energetic.
Accurate.
It's the one I want to use when I'm back over there.
Yeah, humping.
It'll be reserved for you, no doubt. In Nick's,
Thank you.
Cabinet.
Wow. Again, what a great time you all had. And I'm glad that we were able to live through you vicariously.
Indeed.
And all your great experience over there.
Well, it was a super. I'm sorry to have taken up so much time, but I just
well, that's it. Time for the show to end.
Just want to mention one tiny little thing. I did mention in the last show that I'd been on a little podcast called Every Little Thing. It's not a very little podcast; it's actually quite a big podcast. And I managed to get a few plugs for the show there. So Jeff will put I'm sure a link so that you can listen to that if you want. It's called Cockpit Confessions, The Truth About Aeroplane Mode or Airplane Mode, and more. So myself and another pilot called Sandy Williams were on that answering questions, a bit like today, but they do it slightly differently over there. I think you'd have done a better job, though, Jeff.
Nah, she did a
No,
fine
I
job.
listened this morning on the way to work. It's very cleverly done and edited, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, he
It's
did a great job.
Fun little, very short podcast, I might add.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just the right amount of time for a podcast. Oh, wait.
Oh, we better stop
Okay.
about.
All right, and with that, see you all next week.
That's the end of the show. Thanks for joining us, everyone. We had a great time today. That's not the outro. Got to figure out where that is.
Close enough. It's fine.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm getting a lot of vibes today from my co-host.
Love you, Jeff.
Yeah.
We do.
Okay. Let's see. Well, Steph, what have you been up to?
Well, I was, circumstances did not allow for me to get to England this past weekend, even though I did know about the get together. So my apologies for not making it this past weekend, but I had a good time, obviously, the weekend before with the folks at Duxford. So I was glad I was able to make it for that. But partly because we a lot of stuff going on just kind of personally and in the family right now. But long story short, my brothers are in town. And between myself and my neighbor on Saturday afternoon evening, we hosted a party. Both myself and my neighbors have either personally or within the family have had folks dealing with cancer and battling that. And we wanted to have a little party to say F you to cancer. So that's what we did. And I think it was a pretty good turnout. We actually, Jeff was there, and Armando was nice enough to come by with his wife, and Dana was invited, but fortunately had the good sense to he had other more important things that he needed to take care of, and I will let him discuss that if he so wishes when he gets here for the show. So, but anyway, it was nice evening for it, warm evening, had some nice barbecue, lots of beverages, party punches, and folks stuck around kind of late. We ended up at the fire pits after dark, and I think we turned in about 1:30 in the morning finally. So didn't move. Yeah, Jeff has way more sense. Way more sense than that.
I'm just curious, Steph. Party punches, is that when you get in a fight with the guests?
Well, that's what happens after you drink the punch.
That's why I wanted to leave before all that happened.
No, we just some festive drinks,
fruit
punches with a lot of alcohol in them.
All right,
and
punch.
Very nice.
Yeah, it was a very nice night and a kind of a fun thing to do and a way to, especially for my neighbors, they've been through quite a bit, and it was a fun way to release some pent up steam and not have a whole lot of cares for an evening. So that was nice. Sunday, the fun continues on Sunday. Colonel Jeff, the good-looking Captain Jeff.
No, not familiar with him.
Not familiar with him. He had a long Charlotte layover, so he had actually gotten in touch with me when he first got his schedule, and said, "Hey, if you're around, be great to meet up." It was kind of a busy day, but we were able to get together in the afternoon, and we actually all went over to Topgolf and played a couple of rounds of golf. It was myself and my brothers and Justice and Colonel Jeff. And turns out Jeff is really good at golf. After talking about how terrible he was at it, he's not. That was lies. All lies. He ran away with the first round, but I'm happy to say that after I got a beverage in me, my golf game improved and I won the second round. So
everything's better with alcohol.
It really is. Golfing and bowling are very much the same for me. One beer in, and that's where I peak. So.
Okay. Excellent. Well, I wish that I'd been able to join you all. I was invited to join the Top Golf party, but I needed to get back to Atlanta.
Yes, understandable. Glad you could make it for
me too.
The evening on Saturday. It was nice to see you.
Great seeing everybody there. Okay. And let's see, in about, 1, 2, 3 days or something special, isn't there, Steph?
In 3 days?
Happy birthday to you.
3 days.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Stephanie. Happy birthday to you.
Well, thank you
And
very much.
many more.
I thought Nick was going to join in sooner than that.
I tried to restrain it because I knew it would sound awful, and Jeff was doing such a wonderful job. Anyway,
It was a very lovely rendition. Yes,
my version includes squashed tomatoes and stew, bread and butter in the gutter. Happy birthday to you. So that wouldn't have gone quite so well.
it would have been a little different. I'm not
It
familiar with
would have
that
been.
version, but
So
someday you'll have to perform for me.
I'll always
Yeah,
perform.
sing
for you.
happy birthday. All right.
Yeah,
On my
absolutely.
actual birthday, perhaps. Yeah. Oh,
but
well, how nice is Rick Bell? Happy 21st birthday, Steph. How true it is. How true.
So it is Friday, correct?
It is Friday, yes.
Okay. Thank you, Micah, for pointing that out to us behind the scenes.
Yeah, how did Rick know it was the 21st? It's very clever because today is the 21st.
He's just very smart.
He is.
He's wise.
Because a wise man.
He knows today's date. That's marvelous.
Yeah, it is the 21st today, isn't it? But yeah, it'll be nice. My brothers will still be in town, and it works out a lot of years where they just have this holiday in the United States right on my birthday weekend. So I'll be at work on Friday, but Monday is off. So it'll be a nice day to relax and enjoy.
Great day to be born.
It is indeed. So
all right. Let's see. I had that trip that I was supposed to be on when we recorded the last episode that I called in sick for because of my allergy and bronchitis and that kind of thing. And I thought, and then we just mentioned that I was able to head over to TK for that party and had a great time. And on Sunday, Acme scheduling was calling to see whether or not I was going to be able to fly the trip that I'm on now. And I thought, yeah, sure, I feel pretty good. And I'd say I was around about 95% or so. It was
how's
a little
that
bit
ear
of
feel?
Yeah, my left ear was not quite perfect, but it was okay. So so I called in well, and yesterday it was pretty tough. One leg to Savannah today, 2 legs, to Dayton, Ohio, and then tomorrow is going to be really tough. 3 legs. We go to Atlanta and then a Rochester turn. And then I'm home to kind of get packed up and ready to hit the road again. I'm going to drive right on past the Charlotte area and past Steph. I'll wave, Steph.
I'll wave.
If you're looking.
Bye.
On the way to Elon, North Carolina, where we will be celebrating my youngest daughter, Natalie's, what do you call it? Graduation. There we go. From Elon University. So she's getting her bachelor's degree in accounting. And the retirement ceremony. See, Nick, what you've done to me. It's not a retirement ceremony. It's a graduation ceremony. Is on Friday. So looking forward to having a great weekend with family and celebration.
By the sounds of it, Jeff, your memory is going. I think it's time for you to retire.
It's funny, kind of living through your retirement lately, and I'm thinking, I don't have that much longer to go. I'm starting to shift into this retirement mode already. I'm thinking, well, what the heck?
Way to go.
I don't have to wait for another 4.5 years. I can go whenever I want.
Nah. Work is overrated.
Yeah, but we'll see. A lot of people asking about, so what are you going to do, Jeff? You going to stay on the Mad Dog, or are you going to go to something else? And so here's the definitive. I'm going to stay on it for as long as I can until they kick me off, which is going to be anywhere from 2 years to maybe possibly my retirement date at the end of 2023. These retirements never go as fast as they say they're going to. But if and when they do kick me off the airplane because there are no Mad Dogs left to fly, I'm either going to do one of 2 things. I'll downgrade to the 717. And when I say downgrade, it's because the pay rates are a little bit lower, not significantly such or so. But the good thing about that would be it's only a 6-day school. So just basically learning the differences between the 717, which is basically a Mad Dog, and that would be the least amount of resistance or hassle for me because I hate going to school. And the other direction would be to go over to the 757, 767, 767 ER category, which is all one big category at Acme. And that would allow me to do the kind of flying that I enjoy doing, which is domestic flying. And that would be mostly flying the 757, which I hear is just a wonderful airplane to fly. And maybe on occasion, fly an airplane over to the UK or somewhere in Europe. That might be a nice change of pace.
That certainly would. That would be great fun.
Yeah. So that's a possibility. That would require a little bit more effort on my part because I'd have to learn a new airplane and get a new type rating and all that. So the 717.
It's just like riding a bike. All airplanes.
Yeah,
are,
but see, like I'm
it's
not
all flying.
I'm an old dog now, just like the airplane I'm flying.
Don't fall off the bike.
Yeah. So we'll see. But either of those choices will be fantastic. Will be great opportunities for me. So that's what my plan is. And no Airbus in my future. It's just too close to the end for me. So I'm kind of old school. So
yeah, from one steam-driven airplane to another, it'll be fine.
There you go. Every airplane that I've flown in my life has been old when I got on it. Has been around for a while. Let me just put it that way. Old, trusted, tried and true technology. So why not just keep it that way till the very end?
It's a great idea.
There we go. And yes, Liz says in the chat room, no more college fees for Jeff. I think that is correct. I think that very close to the end of that, Liz. Thank you very much. So a pay raise in itself, effectively. Okay, well, that is it. We're all caught up. And now it would be nice to kind of acknowledge those fantastic people that support us and our community financially. And we do that by having the Jeff Smith sing the Java Jive.
Johnny, how much more coffee? No thanks.
I'll join him. I love coffee. I love tea. I love the APG community. Coffee and tea and the Java and me. A cup, a cup, a cup, a cup, a cup. Thank you, Jeff. So, the Coffee Fund, as I mentioned, your way to support the show financially. You have a couple of different ways to do that. One is the Coffee Fund Classic method via PayPal. You can make a one-time contribution or a recurring donation through PayPal. And since the last episode, we have Mazus Karim, a very nice, generous contribution. Recurring payments from Terry Liu and David Lieb and Chris Randall, and also a donation from Randy Ward. So thank you guys for your kind and generous donations to the Coffee Fund. The other way to do it is to become a patron of the show via Patreon, patreon.com/airlinepilotguy, where you can pledge a certain amount per episode. We have a couple different tiers. New producer since the last episode, Claudio Caccini, and a new assistant senior executive producer, the one of the higher tiers, David Russell. So thank you, David, Claudio, for becoming patrons of the show. Again, you can learn more about the Coffee Fund by heading over to airlinepilotguy.com/coffee.
Stand by for news.
All right, John Picard sent us an update to an event that happened on an A320 into Sydney, Australia. John Picard is the gentleman, I believe, that was holding our APG or Acme Air logo at the Everest Base Camp, right?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Yeah. I think Nick and I met him at Duxford.
At the Duxford meetup.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Is that correct,
Oh, yeah.
Nick? Help me out. Help.
Next.
I'm sorry, I was pouring myself a coffee. So I might
Just
have
say,
missed a little
yes,
bit
you're
of that.
correct. Yes, you're correct.
Yes.
That's good. That's fine. Yes, you're correct.
Okay.
Liz says John Luke.
John Luke Picard.
Is that
Probably
a Star Trek?
That's Star Trek.
Yeah,
reference?
yep, that's exactly right.
Anyway, he says, report into an A320 into Sydney, Australia, where the Crew inputted the wrong information into the flight control unit, but failed to notice an increase in speed, which overstressed the landing gear and flaps as they performed a go-around. And so there's a ATSB investigation report on this. See, while we're approaching runway 34 left, the crew observed that the aircraft was high and selected open descent mode on the flight control unit in order to increase the aircraft's rate of descent manually. During the approach, the flight crew selected the missed approach altitude of 3,000 feet in the altitude window of the flight control unit and inadvertently pulled the altitude selector, which apparently is a no-no, which changed the aircraft's vertical flight mode from open descent to open climb. In response to the mode change, the auto thrust system, which was active at the time, increased thrust to climb the aircraft. Observing that the approach was not stable, the captain commanded a go-around. However, a subsequent non-standard go-around procedure, including a lower than required pitch attitude, resulted in the aircraft accelerating faster than expected, which saw flap and landing gear speed limitations exceeded. A go-around should immediately be carried out if the approach becomes unstable or the landing runway cannot be identified from minimum descent altitude or missed approach point. The captain took control of the aircraft, climbed to the missed approach altitude, and assumed the pilot flying role for the subsequent approach and landing. The ATSB's safety messages from this investigation include that unexpected events during the approach and landing can substantially increase what is already often a period of high crew workload. Adherence to standard operating procedures and correctly monitoring the aircraft and approach parameters best provides assurance that an approach can be safely completed. The ATSB recommends a go-around should be immediately carried out if the approach becomes unstable or the landing runway cannot be identified. We just read that. There we go again. Those journalists adding extra paragraphs for no particular reason.
Their editors are in the Department of Redundancy department.
Yes, exactly. Nick, so were you riding along with these folks and saw the accident waiting to or the incident waiting to happen there with the selections that they made in the altitude window and the various descent modes, etc.?
Yeah. These are a few common traps that you can fall into when you're flying the Airbus, and because they're common, not many people fall into them because we're well aware of particular selections that will potentially cause a problem, and the selecting the go-around altitude in the window is a requirement. And once you've engaged the glide slope, you can change the capture altitude in the altitude window to the go-around altitude because that's where you want to capture it. But you just select it. You don't pull. Having said that, every other time you want to move to an altitude, you do pull. So this is the one occasion when you try not to do that motor action, that autonomic action that goes with turning the altitude. That's a classic. And what the guy has done is he's gauged the glide slope, and when he accidentally pulled on that knob, which basically commands the aircraft now to climb to the altitude he's selected, he disengages his glide slope capture, disengages the approach, and he starts the aircraft climbing up towards the height he's selected, which, when you're probably a bit fast, is a bit of a nightmare. Now, you can get around that if you're quick, before the aircraft goes too high and starts to accelerate too much. Because don't forget, not only does it do that, the auto thrust will also set climb power because you've now commanded the aircraft to climb. So you're going to get a lot of power, and the aircraft's going to start going up when you should have very little power. The aircraft should be going down. If you're quick, you can just disengage it, just like they say on Children of the Magenta. Click, click. And you start hand flying the airplane, pull the throttles back, put the nose back down, re-engage approach mode, recapture the ILS, restabilize the airplane, and if you want to, once you've got it more or less in the ballpark, you can re-engage the autopilots and everything will be fine and be it. They didn't do this, which is fine, because they were reasonably high. When they went into open climb mode, they were at 1,800 feet. Now, the stabilized approach criteria for us only need to be achieved by 1,000 feet. So they've still got some time to sort this little hiccup out. And it's not a serious mistake. Happens a lot. And it's easily recoverable. So not good, but they have got lots of energy, and they also got the aircraft configured. So I think they're a little bit behind the drag curve now, because this probably happened unexpectedly. They allowed the aircraft to accelerate until they hit the flat exceedance speed, and then decided to go around. Now, when you go around, you're going to now move the throttle switch or in climb power setting to toga, and that's quite an increase in power over the climb power you previously had. So you're already going fast, pretty much at flap exceedance speed, and now you're going to add more power to get it into toga mode. Well, there is a way around this, which a lot of people brief and our airline requires, is that once you realize you're in the situation where you're safely above the ground, even though you're in a go around and you don't need all that power, you immediately, once having engaged the toga mode, pull the throttles back to the climb setting so that you get rid of all that extra power. In fact, if you do it neatly, the engines hardly even move in power. And then you can climb away in a more controlled manner. I don't know if they did that, but I suspect.
Well, and it sounds like they didn't climb as
I don't
steeply as
think
they
they
should
did.
have anyway, with kind of a shallow climb after they selected toga.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Yeah, I don't know why, but
Yeah, I mean, when you select toga, the aircraft commands an angle of climb that is appropriate for your speed. So it goes, whoa, you're way fast. It'll command a steep climb. If you don't fly that steep climb, the aircraft's just going to accelerate even more. And it sounds like they just allowed that to happen without really realizing what was going on. Now, the flaps will save themselves to a certain degree. So in some settings, they will retract themselves automatically to save from being damaged, but not in every setting. So eventually you will overspeed them, and certainly you can overspeed the gear. It's quite interesting that if you get the gear to a high speed, it's probably better just to leave it down and throttle back and get the speed under control, because one thing you don't want to do is to try and raise the gear if you've oversped it, if you can possibly avoid it, because you might have damaged the doors and possibly damage some hydraulic pipes, because they're quite vulnerable. That's one of the reasons we have a speed limit for the gear. And if you've done that, you don't really want to risk raising it. If you're already on the approach, just leave the gear down. It'll help you slow down anyway. Just spin the airplane around, do another ILS, get it on the ground, and then just go and put your hand up to the chief pilot and say, I didn't think I did this very well.
Start filling out all that paperwork.
Exactly. To be fair, this was kind of a non-standard height for a go-around. We are very good at practicing go-arounds from minima when we've got right down close to the runway, and for whatever reason, usually the weather, we can't see the runway go around. And that's an easily organized, well-practiced event. When you do it from an odd altitude, and particularly when it was a really unexpected situation, it's often a bit of shambles, and I've seen it in the sim many times. I've done it myself in the sim, and not very well. And it's very easy to end up in this sort of overspeed situation, carrying too much energy.
Well, I knew you'd be the perfect person to discuss this, and
yeah, it's a bit of a non-event. I mean, he obviously let it get a bit far, because overspeeding the gear is probably, it's probably quite. It sounds like he forgot it. It down.
That can also happen when you're distracted and your workload has increased significantly, right. And things are happening not in a non-expected fashion or sequence.
Yeah, exactly right. I feel for him, because this is one of, and you very rarely practice go-arounds from this kind of intermediate situation, and they're much harder to fly than the standard go-around by rope, for which the aircraft is well set up. These ones require a little bit of thought before you do them. And actually, to be fair, he had time to think about it, and but it sounds like he sort of went, we're going to go around. And off he went without going, all right, let's get the speed under control. Let's get the airplane organized. Let's just level off for a minute. Right, what we're going to do is I'm going to go to toga and then back again, and we're going to do this and control the speed, select the speed, and then we're going to raise the flaps, and then we'll do the gear whenever. And you kind of do a mini brief, and then you say, right, off we go, because there's no real urgency once you've decided at like, I don't know what height he was, 1,800
1,800 feet.
yeah.
And I think they were over water or very flat land anyway, so there weren't like obstructions or anything.
Nope. No,
you know.
I think there's no real reason to rush. You do a little stabilize the airplane, do a little mini brief, and then set the airplane up into a go around, and off you go. And that way it works well.
Very good. Very good. Yeah.
All right, I'm going to stick through the next one here, and then I have to say farewell for the evening.
All right. Steph, would you like to read this one?
I would love to read this one.
Okay.
This is from foxnews.com. And it says, world famous chef detained at LAX with 40 frozen piranhas in his bag.
Doesn't everybody have?
I mean, standard luggage. I don't know. Chef, how do you pronounce his name?
Virgilio.
Virgilio
Nice.
Martinez.
Mhm.
Wow. May want to leave his predatory fish at home next time. The world famous Peruvian chef, Virgilio, who was featured in Netflix's Chef's Table series, landed at Los Angeles International Airport last week with 40 vacuum-sealed frozen piranhas in his duffel bag. Martinez told the Los Angeles Times he was hoping to serve the fish, known for its sharp teeth and menacing look, at the LA Food Festival. I was extremely obsessed about bringing piranhas because we serve piranhas in the Amazon at Central, of course. So I said, guys, why not take a risk and bring the piranhas to LA? Martinez said to the Times, referring to his restaurant Central in Lima, Peru. However, his risky move got him stopped by customs agents at the airport. Martinez said one of the customs officials asked him what was inside his bag of fish, prompting the chef to make a dry joke. Bones, flesh, Martinez said.
Yeah, that's kind of dangerous to make jokes.
Not much of a sense of humor usually.
Following the joke, Martinez said customs officers took him into a private interrogation room where he was asked more questions about what he intended to do with the piranhas. Customs officials confirmed to Fox News that the stop was just part of a routine procedure when exotic animals are discovered in passengers' luggage. I took my Central cookbook and said, look, this is what I do want to do with the piranhas. And finally said, oh, wow, go ahead, Martinez said to the Times. After 5 hours of questioning, Martinez was able to leave with his bag full of fish, which he used on a salad later that night.
Well, I guess he had to eat them straight away since they'd all defrosted.
Yeah, it was 5 hours of customs. No longer
they-
frozen piranhas.
Hope they were able to keep them cool. I'm not sure I'd want to eat those piranhas. Well, I don't even know if I'd want to eat a piranha to begin with.
Well, it's better than a piranha eating you.
Yeah, I was just going to say the same thing. Good point. Good point.
By the way, I love his name. What is it? Virgilio.
Virgilio.
Virgigolo.
Terrible.
A virgin gigolo.
There you
Okay. Well,
a great advert for his restaurant, no doubt.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting story.
I like it.
All right.
I'm just trying to picture his duffel bag with 40 freeze-dried frozen.
I'm wondering
piranhas.
how they discovered it. I mean, do you think they had like some kind of a dog that sniffed something?
I was like, this smells like fish. It smells a little fishy here.
Yes, that's exactly. Well done, Steph. You beat me to it. Something smells fishy.
Fishy.
Well, speaking of something smelling fishy, let me find it here. Yes. From somewhere in Florida. He is, let's see, I don't have my cheat sheet here. He's a pontoon boat skipper, a motorcycle rider, barbecue master, and so much more.
And a rescuer of friends.
Yes. Captain Dana.
Hey, guys. How are you?
Hi.
Great.
How are you?
How are you?
I am exhausted. I was out in the heat on the side of the I-75 just north of the Florida Turnpike for 2.5 hours in that really hot sun trying to help my buddy out, and went over to Lowe's first, grabbed a pair of wire cutters because his tire was locked on his trailer, his spare tire. So, with a a pretty thin steel cable, like a bike type of cable that you lock up a bike with. And we got there. I snapped that off for him, no problem. However, despite all of our best efforts, we couldn't get the spare tire off the mount because the lug bolts were all seized. So
Rusted.
we worked. So that's the reason why I'm so late.
No, that's going to work out just fine because I have to. I was just about to say my goodbyes for the evening, so we'll do a little swap here.
Doing a tag team here. So he's tagging you,
Tag.
Steph.
Tag.
You're out.
Tag.
Okay.
Well, thanks for joining us, Steph.
Yes,
And,
my apologies. I can't stay for the rest of the show. It looks like a great lineup of more news and feedback, and wonderful Plain Tales, which I actually have listened to in advance for once. So,
Oh, wow.
stay tuned for that.
Lovely to see you, Steph, and
Lovely to
have
see
a great evening.
Thank you, and I'm sure I will see you all very soon next week.
Yeah, my best to
Bye.
your family.
Will do.
Take care.
Will do. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. All right. So, Dana, you haven't been doing a lot of flying. You're kind of on vacation, I guess.
Yep, I have absolutely nothing to update on anything aviation related.
Okay.
So it's been fun. I'm in the villages down here in the central part of Florida, visiting with some friends. We're going to a Memorial Day weekend boat, almost like a boat rally. Bunch of power boaters that we hang out with that are going to be down on the St. Johns River, going to a very secluded, I think it's Glen Springs or something somewhere, to hang out for the weekend. So that's why I'm down here in Florida. My next door neighbor, Calvin and Judy, who you've met. Nick, you met him. That's my buddy from England. And that's really all that's been going on. I flew a 4-day last week. Haven't put anything, for those folks that have been looking for my schedule, I haven't put anything out there. It's a good thing I didn't, because the 4-day I did fly, I changed it as I talked about last week. So just enjoying life a little bit this week.
Excellent. Well, we're glad that you were able to join us.
Yeah.
Right now, we're kind of in the middle of the news folder. And so if that's all right with you, we'll go ahead and just continue that.
Sounds like a plan to me. Sorry to butt in so late.
No problem. No problem.
Sure.
I just want
Great to see you.
try to get as much done as
Likewise.
we can.
I do want to comment on one thing. I love what's hanging behind you, Nick. That is an amazing tribute to you, sir.
Isn't it lovely? And
is
you, of
so
course,
amazing.
I thanked everyone else you went on, but thanks very much indeed for your contribution to the cost of that. And it's just the most beautiful, handmade, and very special item. I will treasure it forever.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Don't look now, but I
Congratulations.
think it just fell off the wall.
It did. It did. I saw it.
Damn it.
Man.
For those of you who wanted to contribute, contribution window is now open.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the
Version
other one,
2.
the next one, yeah, exactly right.
We're just kidding, of course. All right, item C. Pilot falls unconscious this is from ABC News, Australia. Christian Base sent us the idea via the APG Slack news channel. Pilot falls unconscious for 40 minutes over Adelaide airspace in a light plane. Let's see, the Australian Transport Safety Bureau, the second one in today's news folder, it's kind of Australia focused, has released its report into the serious incident which happened in March and involved an aircraft from flight school flight training Adelaide. The pilot, who had not eaten breakfast, fell unconscious about 40 minutes into the flight and remained unconscious for another 40 minutes. The pilot began to feel a headache in his forehead and engaged the autopilot. Prior to the flight, he had suffered from a restless night of sleep and was recovering from a mild cold. Flight YTR left Port Augusta for Adelaide's Parafield Airport on the morning of March 9th. The Diamond DA-40 aircraft entered Adelaide's controlled airspace without clearance about 11 o'clock. The route, logged by FlightAware, extended south across the Gulf St. Vincent before heading north, with the plane eventually landing at Parafield Airport. The report does not make it clear if the man fainted or fell asleep, but said the pilot infringed Adelaide Airport's airspace. According to the air traffic controllers, they attempted contact numerous times unsuccessfully. The crew of a Diamond DA-42, which was operating in the area, offered their assistance to ATC in identifying and establishing contact with the aircraft. At about 11:15 a.m., the crew made visual contact with the DA-40 and reported that the pilot had regained consciousness. At this point, the aircraft was over water. Radio contact was subsequently established, and ATC assisted the pilot in returning the aircraft to Parafield whilst under escort by the DA-42. Another Adelaide-based pilot who did not wish to be named told the ABC the incident probably ended up grounding some jets at Adelaide Airport. Air Services Australia confirmed nearby aircraft were cleared from an area 50 kilometers north of Adelaide as a precaution. Flight Training Adelaide declined to comment on the incident to ABC. The ATSB report said the pilot did not consume any breakfast before leaving Parafield in Port Augusta, where the pilot stopped over before flying back. During the flight from Parafield to Port Augusta, the pilot only consumed a bottle of Gatorade, some water, and a chocolate bar during the stopover in Port Augusta. Following the incident, Flight Training Adelaide told the ATSB it would implement several safety actions, including requiring students to log their hours of sleep in the previous 24 and 48 hours, and the time of when their last meal was consumed and the type of meal. The training school also committed to providing better guidance to students regarding sleep patterns and conduct a safety briefing with more emphasis on fatigue management. Now, I don't know about you, but I've gotten up and, without even eating breakfast. This guy had a lot more than I usually eat for breakfast. I don't know. There seems like more to this than what they're reporting, because he did have Gatorade and he had a chocolate bar and something else.
Yeah, but he's suffering from a cold as well. I just wondering with that.
Wonder if he was taking some kind of medication,
some type of cold medication with that as well, and he probably, with eating all that sugar and drinking Gatorade, spiked his sugar and probably had a rapid drop off of the sugar. So that could, obviously complicated his situation. You and I mean, me. I mean, I've been pretty forward and vocal about it. I go regularly without eating, and it actually controls my blood sugar very well, keeps my A1C very low. So, everybody's different, and honestly, I have the most energy when I don't eat. So, one could argue that you should be eating, at least 3 to 6 times a day, and in Nick's case, he has the the need to do so, and it's everybody's different, so we can't really judge on fact that this guy didn't eat breakfast. I think it's just a combination of the high sugar. I think it's a combination of the cold and probably taking medication. Probably didn't get, as they indicated, didn't get a good night's sleep, and probably is not used to not eating food. So
yeah,
I think it's a combination of all of that.
Yeah, it's interesting. The Air Force used to warn us against eating something with a high sugar content on a reasonably empty stomach just before flying, because the high sugar content in your bloodstream encourages the production of a lot of insulin to keep your blood sugar levels high. And that insulin doesn't leave your bloodstream straight away. It can get rid of the sugar spike, but then the insulin continues to flow around in your bloodstream and will reduce your sugar level to a dangerously low level, just because it's got rid of the spike, but now it's just continuing around, and it's continuing to get rid of sugar for much longer than you really wanted. And this can go from hyperglycemic to hypoglycemic. I hope I've got those the right way around. Low blood sugar, low energy, and if you've already had a bad night and got a few symptoms from an old cold, then you're going to feel pretty unwell at that point. So it was a big thing for us. We were, had to keep a very close eye on what we ate and how well we slept. Although I have to say, being a young man, we ignored most of that advice most of the time. But there you go. I suspect something like that happened here.
I think you're right. The best part of this, my Australian brother, Ben Nielsen, is the one that wrote this story for abcnews.au.
You had a convict in the family.
Ah, well, it makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah. Nice one. Yeah, but I mean, we haven't made a point of how bloody dangerous it was, though, because the guy's unconscious and he's plowing out to sea. This could actually have been quite a tragedy if he hadn't got the autopilot in, and if he hadn't woken up when he did. This could have meant his death. So, it's the serious side of this.
That is true. But we don't like to dwell on the serious side of things on this show.
No.
Although this next item is serious. Yes. So much so that my computer is making noises. You probably didn't hear that, though, did you?
No. I didn't hear serious noises.
It was on this computer that I can hear. Okay, never mind. Pilots die after crop duster planes collide in midair in Sutter County. This is in Pleasant Grove, California, from KCRA.com, a local affiliate. 2 pilots were killed Wednesday after a pair of crop duster planes collided in the midair over a rice field in Sutter County, authorities said. The collision between 2 single-engine Grumman G-164C Ag Cats collided or happened around noon near 3870 Pleasant Grove Road in the Pleasant Grove area, according to the Federal Aviation Administration. Video from Live Copter 3 showed one plane split into pieces on the ground and the other plane in water about 250 feet away. Just to be clear, I don't think there was actually film or video of the actual collision, but the aftermath. A friend of both men said the 2 pilots were friends. Today is a tough day for everybody because they loved what they did, said Tom Beelby. They wouldn't have it any other way. They died doing what they liked to do. He said the 2 men came from a family of flyers. He said both were well known and respected in the agricultural community. Both of their dads flew airplanes. They started flying airplanes at a young age. It just gets under your skin. I think like any other job or hobby, it's something you enjoy. So that was kind of a sad story to ag planes, 2 crop dusters colliding.
It is. And Dana probably knows a lot more about this than me, but it's one of the most dangerous types of flying you can do. But
it's exactly what I was going to say. Yep.
Yeah. But it's pretty rare that they hit each other, Dana. I mean, you're close to the ground, there's wires, there's all sorts of hazards, but hitting another crop duster, that's pretty rare, isn't it?
Very rare event.
I wonder whether they're in the same proximity. Usually they're not, right?
They're usually not, and they're, especially when you're operating out of one airfield, they usually coordinate or, figure out, who's doing what, where, when. And very unusual for them to be in the same general vicinity. I mean, they can be close to each other, but they're pretty smart because they realize how dangerous it is. So somebody made a mistake. I'm going to say it's, I hate to say it because you can't defend people. People are not here to defend themselves, but there's probably some pilot error obviously involved with this as to where they should have been at what time. It could be from 2 separate fields though. So, it may be, in the general same vicinity, maybe contracting from a different ag outfit from, different airports. So that's always a possibility. So there's a lot of things, but absolutely, Nick, it is the most dangerous form of aviating, and not only that, but the chemicals that you're exposed to as well. I grew up with going to PDK, and Leonard Harris was the owner, or not the owner, but the manager of a very well-known flight shop, a pilot shop that I worked for. And I just saw him very recently. And his health has taken a terrible turn for the worse. And he can only point it directly to the exposure to the chemicals that he was around all the time spraying. So there's that danger as well. So, low power lines, low flying birds, just unforgiving weather conditions, all those can contribute. And of course, the obvious possibility of running into another airplane.
Yeah, of course, when you're flying that close to the ground, your lookout is not going to be exceptionally good because you've got to concentrate. You're only feet above the fields, so you're not going to be looking all around all the time. So it's harder to spot aircraft. And of course, they work very long days as well. It's when they want those crops to be dusted, treated, they want it done in as short a time as possible. So you're kind of working pretty long hours on top of everything else. So, yeah. And if you get an engine failure at that sort of height, you've got very little you can do, because normally, you'd hope you'd be up at a few thousand feet, got time to set yourself up for a forced landing. When you're down that low, you've got no time at all.
You just hope you have some energy built up to do something with.
Exactly.
Yeah,
right.
It's a high speed process, and you're very close to the ground. The only advantage that you have, generally speaking, agricultural spraying, is that you are pretty much over open fields, except for, of course, the power lines and all the other hazards and tree lines and everything else. But yeah, you're a matter of feet above the ground. You don't have time to really make those quick decisions if you lose an engine. So yeah, very dangerous.
Yeah.
All right. Next item here. Now, this is somebody in my Twitter feed retweeted this, and I don't recall who it was. I think it may have been Craig, First Officer Craig, but it doesn't matter. It's a screenshot of somebody's phone. They use T-Mobile, and they're at 63% battery, in case you're wondering.
And they've got 2 friends waiting to join them.
Oh, yeah. Look at that. So it's a picture, which we'll put in the show notes, and it's something that you really do need to take a look at. It's the interior of a hotel van after they were involved in an accident. And the text here says, "I've never seen anyone wear a seatbelt in the hotel van, myself included. This happened on a routine ride to the airport this morning to a mainline American Airlines crew. Everyone suffered career-threatening injuries." Let me read that last sentence again. Everyone suffered career-threatening injuries. So I think the person that was tweeting this is basically what she is trying to tell us is that, it's really not that difficult to take the effort to put the darn seatbelt on, because guess what? Occasionally, your luck may run out, and you might be involved in this. And I've mentioned on this show several times that you should always be wearing your seatbelts in any kind of vehicle that's moving, if you can, if they have them. And I have covered personally at least twice trips for people that were involved in accidents in hotel vans, either going from the hotel to the airport or vice versa. And it's not uncommon.
Nope.
Airbags are all over the place. There's a lot of you can tell that something horrible happened to the inside of this van, and you can see, I guess, through the windshield, at least one other vehicle involved in this accident, which was a pickup truck, and you can see the airbags that have activated in that vehicle as well. I think that's a pickup truck anyway. That's what it looks like to me. But anyway, I just thought I'd throw that in there, folks, that if you're...
I was guilty of that as well, Jeff, of being lackadaisical about that. And particularly since the captain always tended to sit at the front, there wasn't even a soft seat in front. There was, generally speaking, a metal pole for me to be impaled on.
It's going to hurt when you hit your head with that.
But still, I used to not bother to put a seatbelt on. Stupid, I know.
I always joke around with the people saying, so do you feel like when you're in this van that you have like a bubble of safety around you or something? Or I say to the flight attendants, aren't you the ones that go and nag people to put their seatbelts on if they don't have their seatbelts fastened? Yeah. Why don't you have your seatbelt on? I don't know. I try not to be that guy, but still, it's nice to have a reminder like this every once in a while.
What's the most dangerous part of our job?
Yeah, it's the
drive to
transportation
and from the airport.
That's right.
Absolutely. I mean, people are always nervous about getting in an airplane and going flying, but when was the last time you had to renew your driver's license? when you're 18 years old and got it, or 16 years old when you got it. You don't have to renew in most states and most places. I don't know. I can't speak for the world, but I can speak for my experience in Massachusetts and Georgia, that you don't have to. You just renew your license. You don't have to go take another driver's test. That's very unlike our scenario as pilots. We are. In our case, every 9 months have to go and recertify, and then we also have to have medical certification. So there are all these types of variables that are involved when you get into a hotel van or drive to and from the work that you're being exposed to. And that's the most dangerous part of our job.
Yep, that is true. All right, and then finally, our last item in the news folder, and this just happened recently. Thank you to Micah for sending me a link to this. We talked about on the last episode that collision of two sightseeing airplanes on one of those Alaska cruises. That was like one of the side tours or whatever, expeditions, or whatever they call that. What do you call that, Dana, when you're on a cruise ship and they do something on the side?
It's called a. You put me on the spot, of course.
Okay, I know there's a word for it. I just can't think of
Excursion.
Excursion.
Yes.
Yeah. So one of the companies involved in that mid-air collision that killed, I believe, 9 or something like that, several, or at least 6. Taquan Air was involved in another accident on yesterday, Monday, the 20th, and 2 people died in this incident Monday afternoon after their plane crashed in waters near Metlakatla, a week after another deadly crash in nearby Ketchikan. That's about 8 nautical miles away. The company had grounded all their flights for a few days, and then had just resumed flying again on the 17th, I believe. And this was not a excursion, but it was a commuter flight. There was the passenger that they were flying from Ketchikan was commuting to this other location. And they're not sure exactly what happened. They think that eyewitnesses have said that they think this accident occurred upon landing, and that's all we know. So,
funnily enough, that's exactly what you suggested, Dana, that they might not have coordinated their landing well.
Yeah. Now, I think the other one, we're not sure yet what the other, the collision, mid-air collision, I don't know if that was landing or not, but they didn't say one way or another. But this one, I think they're more certain that that's where the accident occurred. And it was just a single airplane in this case, a Beaver.
Oh, okay.
So this was, but a little bad timing for this company, Taquan Air, right? Within a couple week period, you have 2 fatal accidents.
Didn't they say the last week in the article that they were not going to stop flying for a little bit, or am I not remembering that correctly?
No, they did. They actually stopped for a period of time, and then they resumed. I don't think they resumed the tourist excursion kind of flying, but they also do the commuting kind of flying.
I remember there being a lot of flights every day that they go up to the outermost rural communities, I guess, and shuttle people back and forth. So I guess they're probably doing that again.
I take that back. I correct myself here. The last paragraph says Taquan had suspended scheduled flights on May 14th after the Ketchikan crash, according to its Facebook page, but resumed them along with flight seeing tours and chartered flights on May 17th.
Yeah,
maybe they didn't shut down long enough.
No, clearly not.
Wow. I'm sure they're going to be going through their safety programs to see what's going on here. Why all of a sudden are we having these incidents?
I wonder, Jeff. I mean, this is me kind of thinking outside the box. I just wonder if this is starting to be a precursor to the level of experience that's out there and what we're losing in the industry, and the challenges that we're going to be facing going forward with the lack of expertise that we're having. I mean, that's a relatively low paying job with high frequencies, and it's going to be
Challenging conditions.
Yeah, challenging conditions for aviators that haven't probably been. I mean, not to say anything bad about Taquan pilots. I'm sure they have a very a dedicated group of guys and girls that have been flying for them for a long time. But this might be a precursor to some of the newer talent and people they've got coming in. I don't know, but
I thought the exact same thing when I was reading this. I'm thinking, is this something we're going to start seeing more and more of here in the future because of the shortage of pilots, qualified pilots out there?
Yes.
Yeah. So we'll have to kind of keep our eyes and ears open to see if what's going on with that. And if that's the case, I don't know what you do. How do you get experience? You gotta go out there and do it. That's the only way to build experience. Yeah, training's got to get better.
You have to have better training, and this is kind of what is. I'm not really going to go down this road. I'm just going to mention it real quick. Is with the 737 MAX, that is one of the driving factors is the cost of training, right?
Mhm.
So it's a common type rating. So the airlines didn't want to pay that extra money because they want to keep their training costs low. So thus, that's really, it's a double-edged sword. You want to keep your training costs low, but that's really how you keep safety and keep people safe and your pilots educated is through very good training. So that's what they're going to have. People in the training departments are going to have to really focus in on that. The talent coming through doesn't have the level of experience that you and I had, right, or Nick coming forward. So they're going to have to spend more time training people. I think that's how we're going to mitigate it.
Yeah, we'll have to do something, that's for sure. All right, with that, it's now time for one of the best parts of the show: your feedback.
Captain, incoming message.
And the first item in our feedback folder is from Doug. Hi, I recently was on my way home from vacation, and the last leg of the trip was on an American Eagle Embraer. I think it was a 145. We were flying from Dallas to Springfield, Missouri. It was a very stormy night, and once we got near Springfield Airport, we had to circle and wait for the storm cell above the airport to move off, which is a good decision those pilots made. When we landed, we started sliding to the point of going a little sideways, and some of the young ladies sitting behind me let out a small scream. It seemed like we went quite a ways down the runway before the reverse thrusters were engaged. I have only flown on 2 to 3 dozen flights, but this was a bit scary. My question for the crew is it ever okay for a plane to be skidding or sliding? Again, that's from Doug. What say you, Dana?
Yeah, no, that means the aircraft is out of control. And what we try to do is, some of the things that we can do to mitigate those situations is, number one, if it's that heavy, don't land the airplane. If the runway is not grooved, you have to be very well aware whether the braking action is going to be affected. There is, certain circumstances where, little skidding or sliding may occur, and that is, when you're going over the paint on the runway, you can get a little bit of skidding with that. So that, or sliding, that is, as long as you're in control.
Anti-skid braking system sometimes will give that feeling that you're skidding.
True. Very true. So
and that's something that's not dangerous. That's just something that is weird to feel that you don't normally feel.
Yeah, and that's that can be, even to us experienced pilots, when that starts happening, your radar goes up a little bit. Okay, what's going on? Okay, yeah, we're just over a little bit of paint here, not a big deal. So, one of the contributing factors back in Little Rock was the heavy rain and the lack of the arming of the spoilers and the late deployment of the reversers. I think was I think it was one of the causal factors, but it was more the spoilers and the heavy rain at the airport. So yeah, I mean it's not okay in most cases, especially if it's heavy rain. However, if it's raining out, there is a possibility that you will have some skidding going on.
Yeah. Nick, anything to add on that?
Not at all. No, it's not a very nice thing if you start to skid on the runway. I'm sure the guys had it under control, but it sometimes feels like the airplane lurches around a little bit. And so, yeah, it probably wasn't very nice. But
What you don't have the advantage of that we do is that we are looking out the front of our airplane and we can see how much runway is remaining. So when we are putting the brakes on and you're starting to feel that pulsing or that skidding and, sliding feel, you know that this is okay because I still have a lot of runway ahead of me. And I do feel like we are slowing down. But if you're just in the back and you're looking out the window, not really sure exactly how much more runway is remaining, that can be a little uncomfortable.
Sure. And it's how do I want to put this? All right. So I think it was last week, I had a very similar situation. I was going into a shorter runway, 8,000-ish feet long, into Omaha, I think it was, and it was pretty windy conditions, heavy rain in and around the airport. A grooved runway, but what I didn't want to do is sit there and try to grease the airplane on. I just brought the airplane down and made sure I had a relatively firm landing to break any hydroplaning on the wheels, get the airplane stopped. And Jeff, you've flown with me. I tend not to use the auto brake system, and I decided that night to use the auto brake system to help mitigate and get the airplane stopped. And a few passengers got off the airplane. Well, that was a firm landing. Well, if you knew the situation,
that's what we needed to do. Yeah.
That's what I absolutely had to do. I mean, it's not the longest runway in the world. I'm landing on a runway that's wet and it's windy out there. I want to get the airplane down and I want to get it stopped. So, and it's very much a perception. What we perceive as a passenger is completely different. Exactly what you said is the people up in the cockpit and control.
Yeah, in those situations that you just described, Dana, is like you kind of brief like, okay, this is the deal. We're gonna give it one shot for a nice landing, and then that's it. We're putting it down because we don't have any room, no margin here to try to grease it on. In fact, that's pretty much the last thing you really want to do when you're in a condition like that is to grease it on, because all you're doing is encouraging hydroplaning. So
exactly,
yeah, and you don't want to be hydroplaning unless you have a really, really long runway.
Now, have you ever noticed, Steph, and I don't know, Nick, I can throw this at you too, but some of my best landings tend to be on those wet runways because we just don't have the wheels grabbing like you normally do on a dry runway. So you're gonna tend to have a smooth landing on a wet runway as it is, because that's what initially happens. You have a little bit of that hydroplane going on, absorbing some of those horses. Now, if you come down and you land doing 500 foot per minute vertical descent and you hit the runway, you're gonna feel it. But if you smooth out and get it on there smoothly, then that's some of my smoothest landings have always been on a somewhat wet runway. It just helps to absorb some of that friction.
Oh, anything to add, Nick?
When you throw 200 tons at a runway, it doesn't do much. It usually just sits there.
Really? Okay.
Well, I don't really. I mean, in a big airplane, I don't feel these kind of effects that you might get on a slightly smaller machine. The airplane is not as lively. You put it on the runway, it tends to stay there.
You have a lot of mass, and you have those big tires on the trucks and all that.
Of inertia. So you're not going to squirrel around very much.
No.
So this is probably out of my experience level.
Yeah, on the airplanes that Dana and I fly, there's definitely a more sporty. The weight is much lighter. And we don't have as many wheels out there to absorb all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
All right. Well, thank you, Doug. I hope that answered your question. Thomas writes in, he says, follow up to my last feedback. He says, in reference to my last feedback regarding the interactions between the flight deck and crash rescue operations, I wanted to reinforce a point I glazed over slightly in the recording. This is from Thomas Merriman. He sent us a very nice audio recording regarding ARFF and pilots and communications and such. He says, I was recently at a local airport talking to the guys from the nearby fire station, which has an ARFF apparatus. And the point was made that since they have no scheduled Part 121 operations, they only have the apparatus because the city and airport agree that they need it. While this field is home to 2 major flight schools, a host of GA aircraft and corporate jets that include at least 2 regularly visiting BBJs, which are Boeing business jets, essentially private 737s. There is no regulation on the books to require the airport authority to provide fire rescue capabilities specific to the airport's needs. The point being, if you were to have to make an emergency diversion into a field that does not normally service airlines, there is a very good chance that there will not be any apparatus stationed at the field, and what equipment that does arrive may be poorly equipped for the fire suppression and extrication styles that would specifically befall ARFF trained personnel. While I'm sure that this would likely be a non-issue for Captain Nick, given the runway length he would need, it's an interesting tidbit to have in the back of your mind for the guys and gals that operate the smaller mainline and regional airframes. Obviously, the biggest thing is still to get it on the ground, and I wouldn't pass up a field like this in urgent situations. Just thought it might add to the many variables that are discussed in an emergency time decision-making process. Until my next long-winded feedback, keep the appropriate sides skyward and groundward. Thomas Merriman, TM. So I believe, now I'm not absolutely positive about this, and maybe Dana knows the right answer to this, but we have a list of mainline airports that we operate into and out of scheduled service all the time. We have another list of airports that qualify as authorized alternate airports that either are normal mainline airports that we use on a continuing basis, or perhaps not. Maybe we don't go into these airports very often. And then we also have a very much smaller list of airports that are considered emergency airports. And I believe that every single one of them at Acme require a certain minimum level of ARFF capabilities. Dana, do you know that to be the fact?
I don't know whether that's fact or not, but I don't think they'd list any airports in our authorized or used in emergency situation airports that wouldn't have some type of ARFF available.
Yeah, I'll have to look that up. I should have looked that up before we discussed this on the show.
I don't know specifically.
Yeah,
the answer.
I have a very strong feeling that there are certain, there are certain requirements the FAA has for Part 121 aircraft, and there's also, subsequent to that, or in addition to that, the airlines themselves can list certain requirements for airfields to meet certain standards. And I'm pretty sure that Acme is pretty conservative when it comes to these things, and I'm pretty sure that most of these listed alternate and emergency airfields have just the basic ARFF, as you said, apparatus there if it needed to be employed. But if you're in a situation where both engines have flamed out and you need to put it down somewhere, I don't care. I'm not going to take the time to look up whether or not that airport that I see ahead of me that has a runway is listed in the authorized, alternate or emergency airfields. I'm just going to put it down. And in that case, you're probably not thinking too much about whether or not they have, a fire airport, rescue and firefighting apparatus available there. You just want to get it on the ground because you're in a dire situation.
Yeah, I mean, from my point of view, when you're up at cruising height, you're not going to be looking to put the aircraft down in an airfield within 50 miles when there's something that's reasonable in 70 miles, because just getting the aircraft down that quickly is in itself something of a problem. I mean, normally we'd be starting our descent, say 100 miles away from our destination airfield. You can obviously bring the aircraft down a little quicker, but eventually it becomes a nightmare, because if you try and do everything too quickly, unless you're an absolute dire emergency and you're actually on fire and you have to get it down quickly, in which case all the rules go out of the book, you've got a lot of stuff to cover when you're diverting with an emergency. You've still got to be able to brief and carry out a reasonable approach. You've got to have the plates out. You've got to do a quick discussion. You've got to do a quick landing distance calculation, because even if you've got an emergency, you still don't want to make it worse by running off the end of the runway. So the chances are you're not going to try and throw it on an airfield that's underneath you. And I don't know I mean, flying across the states a lot of time, there are a lot of airfields around. You're generally within touching distance of a major international airport. So the need to go into a little airport is usually not there.
Good point.
Yeah. And I mean, quite frankly, most airports, especially towered airports, which we have a lot of them in the States, are going to have ARFF available on the field. So most of our airports, Jeff, I mean, not 100% like you, but I'm pretty sure that any airport that's listed is going to be able to have ARF available for us on a very rapid basis.
Yeah. I'm quickly trying to find the information in the EFB that I have in front of me regarding the airport directory and online and offline airports. But I haven't seen the ARFF requirement yet. So I'll continue to research that and see what we can find out. I'm sure that somebody out there listening probably knows the answer.
Yeah, like Dispatcher Mike.
Yeah, I bet he knows.
I bet he knows.
So anyway, sorry I don't have that answer right in front of me, but the point was made that that's something that we should kind of keep in the back of our mind when we select a field as an alternate or an emergency airfield. But again, the point is well made that sometimes you don't have the capacity nor the time to check whether or not it's going to be suitable enough. And if it's a dire emergency, you just put it down on the ground and hope for the best.
I would also venture to guess, Jeff, that in our FMS database, because I keep the airports selected on my map quite a bit of the time, and I'm always thinking about that. Where am I going if I have an emergency? So I would venture to guess that all of the airports that are available in the FMS database are probably ARF as well. And also, on our EFB, we have the map mode on our Jeppesen pages that I also keep up, and it gives me an idea where I am in reference to all the airports. And we have the brown airports, the red brown airports are suited with alternates, and then of course the red airports, the emergency airports. So again, I think all those airports that are displayed are going to be suitably equipped for our arrival if we need to go there. Obviously, It's not going to display an airport that has a 3,000-foot runway. An airport that has a 3,000-foot runway, I can assure you, does not have an ARF. Anything that has a 5,000-foot or greater runway probably has relative, if not ARF on the field, but they may have local provisions for the local firefighters to be there too.
All right,
just guessing on that one.
Yeah, good. Good question, Thomas, and good points being made by you. Good follow-up. Okay, item 3. Terry writes, attached is audio feedback on the subject of sleep apnea. Oh, okay. Let's hear what Terry has to say about sleep apnea. That was not Terry and his audio recording of him snoring. That is Dana. Okay, stop it. Stop it.
Stop it. Okay. Hello, APG crew. My name is Terry from New Jersey. I'm not a pilot. I'm just a good old-fashioned av geek. My question today is regarding the subject of sleep apnea. In addition to suffering from the APG syndrome, I've recently been diagnosed with a case of severe sleep apnea. My doctor prescribed the use of a CPAP as treatment. I've got to say, since I've started using the CPAP, my quality of life has improved dramatically. My state of alertness and my ability to stay up past 8 p.m. is a vast improvement on what it used to be. My question is regarding pilots and sleep apnea. Is sleep apnea something that is tested for on a regular basis? Is sleep apnea a disqualifier for a pilot? Is a treated case of sleep apnea something that you can keep your certificate with? Now, I know that my sleep apnea machine tracks my usage and sends information via a cellular data signal to a place that my doctor can access the information. I would assume that compliance in the use of a CPAP machine would be something that a pilot would need to maintain in order to keep his certificate. I appreciate everything you guys do. Love the show. and look forward to hearing from you regarding this subject. Thanks. Clear skies and tailwinds.
Thank you, Terry. I know that there has been increased emphasis in the last year or two regarding sleep apnea as far as medical certification is concerned. I don't know all the exact details. I can tell you that I've never been tested for it. I think maybe, Dana, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that there was something put out a couple of years ago that said if you have like a neck size greater than a certain measurement or some other kind of body measurement, that you should be considered to have the potential for apnea. Do you recall exactly, Dana, what that was all about?
Oh, do I ever? Because
I had a feeling you had some personal experience.
I had to fight that one because I am a big guy. I mean, I'm a guy of a significant neck size. I've got almost a 21-inch neck.
Ooh,
wow. FAA came out and said, all right, if you have such and such measurements on your neck, then you have to have sleep apnea.
Which is not correct.
I said, well, I know somebody that snores worse than I do. And I've been in the same room with him before.
Talking to me about me.
In all honesty, I mean, if you have the symptoms, then you need to be tested. I've gone around and around with my my FAA medical people regarding that. And they said, well, if you don't have symptoms, and which, by the way, I don't. I mean, I am fully alert. I wake up in the morning fully rested. The only time that I think that I may have a touch of it is when I have this is a Kentucky vanilla barrel cream ale, which is delicious, by the way. But if I tend to overconsume, or if I'm extremely tired, then my wife tells me I tend to have heavy snoring. But I do not, for the most part, ever wake up fatigued. Now, to answer your question, Terry, on the other end of the spectrum, I have a very good friend of mine that has had a terrible time with sleep apnea, with a diagnosis, trying to keep his medical. He was actually out on medical for 3 years. He had 2 surgeries, and the CPAP machine was not effective initially for him. So there can be certification ramifications in keeping your medical certificate. And if it's not properly treated, you are required to, or if it's properly treated and you're able to obviously get the proper rest, then you are able to continue to have your medical certificate. However, if it's untreatable, then you would indeed lose your medical certificate, because it does affect your safety and your ability to operate an aircraft, because you lose your you lose your ability to stay awake and be alert to a lot of threats in certain circumstances, obviously making decisions in critical situations as well. So it would impact and effectively compromise safety. So it is an issue out there. I haven't as Jeff as well. I have not been tested. I do wear my apparatus at night, my Apple Watch. I had another, I forget what's the Fitbit, and then all that stuff monitors my sleep. I actually have a sleep number bed, not that I'm pointing that out, but that actually monitors everything as well. So I have 3 different sources other than my wife and how I feel as to whether I'm actually getting a good night's sleep, and I do. So personally, fighting the FAA, they can't just put a blanket statement out there. It's kind of like going to taking an NFL football player who happens to be about 6'2", solid muscle, and they say that he's obese. Well, they're not obese; they're just solid muscle because they don't fit in the typical profile, as I don't. And if you don't fit in the profile, they want to go ahead and point the finger at you. So.
Yeah, it must be something that they, when you go in for your physical, there must be something that they're looking for when you come in as a patient, whether or not that's something they even mention as far as, well, do you feel like you're stopping breathing in the middle of the night, or do you snore heavily? I mean, I've never had an AME ask me that, and I've never had a test for sleep apnea, so I'm not sure exactly what it is that triggers that for your AME to have a test ordered.
I think in conversation. I mean, if you indicate at all that you're tired, or they can look at you. I mean, I can look at you all the time and see that you don't have bags under your eyes. You don't look tired. You don't seem to be tired. Oh my God, look at those eyes now. But no, so I'm sure they're trained to look for certain symptoms and ask certain questions. But if you start looking for things, unfortunately, you're gonna find them.
Yeah.
And I'm of the mindset, if I don't have the symptoms, why am I looking for it?
Right.
I had a great friend of mine in the Australian Air Force who, when he slipped on his back, he stopped breathing, and it was so severe that he could die. So his wife had to sew, I think she sewed pine cones into the back of his pajamas, so that every time he rolled onto his back, these things would stick into his back and he'd wake up. But I mean, he carried on flying regardless. So obviously it didn't affect his overall sleep. He was just worried about dying while he was asleep.
Yeah, that's a little bit higher priority. I've heard of people sewing in tennis balls in t-shirts to keep people from rolling over on their back, because I might start sleeping on my side, but I almost always, when I wake up, I'm on my back. So my body is trying to to get to where it is comfortable, I guess.
Exactly.
So it is an important thing that if people are suffering from it, it definitely could be career ending, and it can be life ending as well. So if anybody out there suspects that they might have it, then go for the test and do what you can. As far as being a disqualifying thing, I'm pretty sure that there are airline pilots out there that have been diagnosed with sleep apnea, but have been given these CPAP machines, and as long as they're using them, they're allowed to continue to fly, right?
Terry touched upon it, and that is that there's an automatic reporting or a reporting function, and my buddy that actually has the machine and uses it has to use it. I forget what percentage it is, but it's pretty high up there. I think it's 95% of the time, and it has to report as such. So it knows whether it's reporting, and it has to go to the FAA for approval and medical certification validation. So
I'm just curious, and is it something he can carry down route with him, and it works on a battery or something?
No, it's actually a small. They've come a long way with them apparently, and they're very small units that you can pack inside your rollerboard, and you plug it in, and it's able to help you.
I'm just
overnight.
wondering how the long haul guys who are would like to sleep in crew rest, during a very long flight, how they cope if they've got a CPAP. I guess they might be excluded from that style of flying.
So Nick, in my research for a battery for powering things like CPAP machines or perhaps laptops and digital audio recorders, one of the things that many people apparently are using these things for is specifically that people that have CPAP machines and they go on a camping trip or something like that, where they're not going to have electricity available, and they use these and a lot of these things are rated. They actually say this is how long it can run with a typical CPAP, depending on I guess there are different variables as far as what the thing's set for, and I don't know all the details, but apparently that's one of those things that people buy these things for.
Interesting.
So
I guess they could use them on board if they wanted to.
Well, but then
I would imagine
you get into the conversation about having a lithium-ion battery that size on board the aircraft, and of course, in the crew rest facilities, I'm pretty sure they have some type of plug that they could plug in the CPAP. It's just a regular, good old-fashioned plug. I don't know the answer because I've never flown international. Nick, in the crew rest facility. Well, you don't.
We had a small plug, but it was only for razors. If you try to plug anything withdrew any decent amperage, it wouldn't do it.
It would bring the airplane down, basically.
Yeah,
that's nearby. No, I'm kidding. I'm sorry.
I'm not kidding. There's a Mozzie being attracted by my big light here.
So, okay. We kind of missed what you were saying there. You're kind of breaking up, or at least you are to me.
That's right. No, it was a mosquito. Sorry, I was a bit
Oh,
distracted.
no.
There's a mosquito flying around in front of my eyes, and I was
Focus,
trying to
Nick.
do it.
Focus.
I'm doing my best.
Okay. Well, you know what? You know what time it is? It's time for the best part of the show, which is this week's installment of the Old Pilot's Plain Tales. I counted them all out.
The Old Pilot's Plain Tales. I counted them all out. The Falkland Islands are about 300 miles east of the coast of Patagonia and 750 miles north of the Antarctic. They're a small, self-governing territory, but protected by the British government and, as such, referred to as a British overseas territory. The small group of remote islands have variously been occupied by French, Spanish, British, and Argentine settlements, but after laying claim to them initially in 1690, the British re-established rule in 1774 and then again in 1832. By 1840, the islands had been declared a crown colony and a permanent pastoral community of Scottish settlers were established there. The islands continued to be overseen by the British government, but the Argentines disputed ownership and had long wanted to claim this tiny patch of land for themselves. President Juan Perón claimed sovereignty in the 1960s, and the United Nations asked both countries to reach a peaceful settlement on the ownership issue. Whilst the British government quietly conducted behind-the-scenes negotiations and encouraged closer trade ties with Argentina, the Falkland Islanders themselves strongly lobbied the UK Parliament to remain British. Talks between the countries continued through the 70s and into the 80s, but then, unexpectedly, following a period of devastating economic stagnation and large-scale civil unrest against the ruling military junta, on Friday the 2nd of April 1982, the Argentine military invaded the islands. The small British military force that were established on the main island at Port Stanley was soon overwhelmed, and for the first time since the Second World War, hostile foreign troops forcefully occupied British sovereign territory, marching through the streets of Stanley and subjugating British citizens. Following earlier intelligence reports, the UK had already dispatched 2 Swiftsure-class nuclear submarines to the area to establish a naval presence, and very quickly a 200-mile exclusion zone was created around the islands. At one point, HMS Splendid shadowed the Argentinian aircraft carrier Veinticinco de Mayo, ironically a ship that had previously served with the Royal Navy, and would have engaged her had the captain been able to accurately confirm his position. However, although she presented a grave threat to the British task force, which had by now arrived at the islands, following the sinking of the Argentinian cruiser General Belgrano, the aircraft carrier returned to port and did not sail again. It had taken the British task force 4 weeks to sail the 8,000 miles to the Falklands, and amongst the fleet were 2 aircraft carriers, the Invincible and the Hermes. The Hermes was the old lady of the Royal Navy, having been first commissioned in 1959 and sailed many millions of miles since. She wasn't a large carrier, but she successfully flew Supermarine Scimitars and de Havilland Sea Vixens off her decks. She was unable to cope with the next generation of jets, the Phantom and Buccaneer, so had been fitted out as a commando carrier for Royal Marine operations. When the Royal Navy equipped with the Sea Harrier, she was fitted with a ski jump launch deck, and after sailing for the Falklands, she embarked 16 Sea Harriers, 10 RAF Harrier GR3s, and 10 Sea King helicopters, and she served as the flagship of the British forces. During the voyage out to the islands, many on board thought that Hermes would be a big enough stick to threaten the invading forces, and thought that the Argentinians would simply give up their illegal occupation. However, as they pressed south and the temperatures dropped, the mood gradually changed. Amongst the small group of Harrier pilots was Dave Morgan. He would become a captain with Virgin Atlantic, but then he was an RAF flight lieutenant. Only a month or two earlier, he had been detached from the RAF to work with the Navy flying Sea Harriers. Only part of the way through his conversion course, when the conflict broke out, he was told that anyone who could fly an aircraft was going, and they needed him to embark his Harrier onto Hermes on Sunday. It was to be his very first deck landing, and they sailed the next day. During the journey, the pilots set about their daily routine of planning and practicing the live missions that they would have to perform for real: air-to-air combat, ship attacks, and they dropped an example of every live weapon that Hermes carried. In the South Atlantic, it was autumn, and storms were gathering. But despite being outnumbered 10-1 by the Argentinian aircraft, they were confident of being able to give a good account of themselves. They received their final mission briefings, memorized their escape and evasion instructions, and were issued with a personal Browning 9mm automatic pistol. In the quiet times, many wrote last letters to wives and loved ones in case they didn't return home, and then it was back into the comforting routine of preparing to fly. Sitting in his cockpit, Dave chinographed a few marks on the head-up display in case he lost his display data. Some from a normal flying position, and a few from a crouching position, where he expected to be when under fire. As he planned their first assault on Stanley Airfield, Dave was aware that it was essential that everyone needed to carry out their individual roles as perfectly as possible. All prepared, it was at 6:40 a.m. when the ship's broadcast system bellowed out, "Now hear this. Stand clear of jet pipes and intakes. Start Sea Harriers." Dave held up 5 fingers to his plane captain, one for each ejector seat pin, and then wound up his Rolls-Royce Pegasus and ran through his checks. 12 sets of anti-collision lights were flashing, indicating that all the Harriers in this wave were serviceable and ready. A quick glance at the map whilst the carrier turned into wind, and then with the green light on, the flight deck officer dropped his green flag, and the first Harrier screamed down the deck. Dave immediately taxied into position and with a nod slammed the throttle full forward. 10 tons of thrust powered him down the deck and up the ramp, and he flicked the nozzles down to support the weight of the aircraft as at 17 knots he was well below the stall speed. As the fighter accelerated, he rotated the nozzles aft. Within a few seconds, he had his wheels up and was already cutting the corner to join up with his leader. Every 5 seconds, another Harrier powered off the ramp until the whole formation was airborne and heading for the planned landfall at McBride Head. Scouring the sky, Dave spotted a couple of dark shapes hugging the sea. "Break port, bogies, left 10 low." Everyone heaved their jets into a screaming left turn, but the shapes turned into 2 more Harriers on their way to attack the grassed airfield at Goose Green. As the coast loomed up in the early morning light, it looked like the craggy shoreline of Scotland, where Dave had done so much of his training. Down the coast, they soon hit their initial point, only 90 seconds from the airfield. By now, in 3 sections, 4 aircraft were pulling up to toss 1,000-pound bombs onto air defense weapon sites. 3 others were setting up to attack from the northwest. Andy Auld led Dave's 3-ship to the east side of a pair of 900-foot hills north of Stanley. Creaming along at 500 knots, Dave could see the grass tussocks whipping past his aircraft, and as they came around the hill, their target came into view. The entire peninsula that held the airfield seemed to be alive with explosions. Anti-aircraft shells carpeted the sky over the runway so thick they seemed to present an impenetrable wall. The fiery tails of missiles smoked across the sky, and long wavering lines of tracer crisscrossed, but then began to weave his way, churning up the sea all around. There was a moment of horror when the realization that this wasn't a game anymore came to him. But then it all became business as his years of training took hold. He hauled the Harrier left and right between the islands and rocks, automatically dropping down even further. Still accelerating, he was suddenly aware of soldiers firing from the tops of sand dunes above him. Dave flicked up the trigger switch to squeeze off some 30mm cannon shells, but instead of the expected roar of his Aiden guns, nothing happened. It was only later he realized that he'd left the gun's master switch off. Instead, he flattened the defenders with his jet watch as he pitched the Harrier to climb to 150 feet, the minimum drop height for his weapons. Ahead of him, he could see smoking hangars and aircraft lolling drunkenly, badly damaged from the first attacker's run-through. The fuel dump was a storm of orange flame, and huge lumps of debris were still falling from the grey sky. He quickly lined up on a seemingly undamaged little island of transport aircraft, raised the safety catch, and mashed the bomb release button. The weapons came off in turn, and after a short delay, each blew off the bomb casings to expose the 147 bomblets, which were ejected to form a cloud of death that could cover a football field. Holding his aircraft level whilst the weapons released, he was suddenly rocked by a huge explosion, and his Harrier began to vibrate like a road drill. It became impossible to read any instruments, but he still seemed to be flying, so he dove for the ground, going past the tower windows that were only 20 feet up, and straight into a cloud of black smoke. He paused for a second or two, and then turned hard east to clear the high ground and run out to sea. Punching back into the clear air, his radar warning receiver screeched the bad news that a radar-laid anti-aircraft gun had locked him up. Despite the damage he'd suffered, it was no time to be gentle, so Dave flew a bone-crunching 6G brake and then flicked out his air brakes, inside of which had been secreted packets of aluminium chaff. The Sea Harrier didn't have an integral chaff and flares system, so this was the best that could be devised. The chaff decoyed the radar, and the danger fell behind as he ran out to sea. Clear of the target area and safe, they climbed and checked in on the radio. It was expected that they might lose 2 or 3 aircraft in the raid because of the intensity of ground defenses, but Dave felt a huge wave of relief and elation flow through him as everyone checked in. All was safe. As he slowed for the transit back to the ship, the vibration reduced, and now able to read his instruments, he realized that only one gauge didn't work, his rudder trim indicator. Back overhead Hermes, he got a visual inspection from another aircraft, which revealed, to quote, a bloody great hole in his tail. The aircraft seemed to be flying okay, but it was possible that the reaction jets that controlled the Harrier in the hover were damaged. So Dave hung back until everyone else had landed and then flew a rolling landing, running onto the deck with quite a bit of forward speed. It wasn't an approved maneuver since there was no hook and wire system to stop the fighter from rolling off the far end of the deck. Setting up from a mile away, he dropped his gear and flaps and approached straight in. He got his speed back to 50 knots and the aircraft remained controllable, but as he got closer, he saw more and more faces appearing around the deck wanting to get a closer look. Landing about 50 feet in, he safely braked to a halt before taxiing clear and parking at the base of the ski jump. Chains were hooked on to lash the fighter safely down, and Dave could safely shut down and make his seat safe. Opening the cockpit, he felt the bitingly cold wind and realized that despite the temperature, he was sweating profusely. The adrenaline rush he had been through made it difficult to unstrap and stand up before he could climb down and walk unsteadily to join the crowd that had formed around the tail of his aircraft. On the wind-swept and slippery deck, Dave Morgan gazed up at his fin. A 20mm anti-aircraft shell had punched a 6-inch hole through the fin and then exploded, causing considerable damage to both the fin and the tailplane. Looking at the angle of entry, it was clear that the shell had come from nearly head-on and had come very close to taking out the cockpit. They had all got back safely from this first attack on the Argentinian forces, and everyone had been blooded. A total of 12 Harriers had delivered 36 bombs against 2 heavily defended airfields, destroying a large number of enemy aircraft, fuel dumps, and buildings, and escaped almost completely unscathed. That evening, Brian Hanrahan, the BBC reporter who was embedded on board Hermes, reported back to the country. He wasn't allowed to say how many aircraft had taken part in the raid, so whilst we were crowded around our TV sets, trying to find out what was happening to our territory some 8,000 miles away, we heard the now famous phrase that he used.
I'm not allowed to say how many planes joined the raid, but I counted them all out, and I counted them all back. Their pilots were unhurt, cheerful, and jubilant, giving thumbs up signs.
Wow. That was a great story.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Yeah, Dave.
Well, very high production values on that one, Nick.
Oh,
very nice.
Okay. Dave's quite an admired figure in the UK. He was, of course, the last RAF pilot to actually engage and shoot down a fighter, and I hope I'll get to tell that part of the tale in the future. But since then, the RAF has not actually been in a dogfight, and that was the Falklands War was quite a long time ago, 82. Yeah. So, you know, we've managed to keep out of most of the conflicts where we needed to do that sort of stuff. But yeah, he won quite a few medals, obviously, and he did some very brave things while he was there. So I'm looking forward to recounting some more of his career. And I've also, on the recommendation of a friend, I've gone out and bought a book about the pilots in, I think it's, hang on a minute, will you excuse me for 1 second? You can always edit this out. Hang on a minute.
Sure.
Yeah, I do have to say, while I was driving down here to Florida, I re-listened to a lot of Nick's plane tales and a couple of the podcasts, Opposing Bases, and of course, oh my God, I'm having a brain fart. Mike's podcast.
Flying and Life.
Flying in Life. Yeah, I listened to several of his episodes, but I'll tell you what, re-listening to these plane tales is amazing.
Well, that's very kind of you. I appreciate that, Dana. I've got a book here called Vietnam to Western Airlines, and it's an oral history of the air war in Vietnam. Written by a guy who worked for Western, and really includes the stories of the pilots that have flown in Vietnam and then joined that airline. And I'm looking forward to dipping into this and finding some suitable stories from an American point of view.
Oh, that'd be nice.
Yeah.
Do you have a picture of the fin of the Harrier?
I don't. I do, however, have seen a picture of Dave Morgan. Now, he subsequently met up with the families and, in some cases, the pilots. Well, actually, I think I haven't really researched this very well, but certainly with the families of those pilots he shot down and, in some cases, killed, and a very amicable relationship has formed, as sometimes happens after a conflict. After all, it's dreadful to say there's nothing personal between combatants in a war. You're doing a job of work, and as dreadful as it may seem, your job involves defending your country, if necessary, giving your life or taking life. And he's managed to make his peace with the families of those pilots who he killed, which I think is a remarkable feat. So, yeah, he's a very interesting bloke, David Morgan. So, yeah,
I was going to say that one of the advantages, I know your dear listener listening to these fantastic plane tales on the APG show. There is a separate feed with individual plane tales if you want to subscribe to that. And that's information on that is available on the website. And the other nice thing about going to the website and actually looking at each of the individual plane tales episodes is the fact that Nick puts in all kinds of photos and other extra information there. And I was hoping that there would be a picture of that tail fin.
When he visited, and when these folks visited him, there was a press photographer there who, and they took a picture of that piece of his fin, which the Navy cut out of the aircraft to repair it, and they presented him with the framed piece of skin with that damn great hole in it.
Wow.
And you could just put your fist through it, no problem at all. And in an airplane like the Harrier, which is very tight, and the systems are so closely packed, it's a miracle that a 20 millimeter cannon shell through any part of the airframe would not significantly damage it. He was a very lucky man that day.
Wow. Well, thanks again, Nick, for all the hard work you put into these plane tales. All of us appreciate it.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing.
Well, I love doing it, so thanks very much. But even if you hated them, I wouldn't stop.
Well, I hate them, actually.
I despise them. They're terrible.
Too bad.
That's why I spent 6.5 hours in the car listening to him. So
he only had to spend 3, but he just ran around in circles.
Yeah,
exactly. I just was doing circles. I wanted to get flying life in, and I wanted to get opposing bases in. So I just want to make sure I got my full gamut while I was driving down here. But it's so nice to without the distraction of being on the show and just kind of listening and of course I'm now listening to them the second time. It's just amazing the amount of work you put in and how awesome it really is a really great part of this show.
Okay, that's enough patting him on the back.
Much appreciated.
He's going to get way too big of a head, and
that's okay. That's all right. He's British already, so we already know he's already got a big head.
So, a little bird tells me that you might have to leave us.
Yeah, well, the disadvantage of being here in the villages is that everything shuts down by 9 p.m. and it's now 10 past 7, and it's about a 20-ish minute ride by car to where we're going to go for dinner. So I really do have to, unfortunately, sign off so that we can actually eat this evening. If not, we'll be like famished little children running around with empty stomachs and full of beer. So we don't want that. But no, so thank you very much for having me on for this short amount of time. I hope it was a educational and fun experience. It was fun for me, and great to see you guys.
All right,
who's the bloke cleaning his teeth, Dana?
What's that?
It was
Who was the bloke cleaning his teeth?
It was a vape pen or something. I think he was.
Okay.
Yeah. I think I saw some smoke or vapor
Hey,
come
lovely
out.
to see you. Lovely to see you, Dana. Thanks
Love
for
to
your
see you.
kind words.
We'll talk about next week. I'm off all next week, so whatever works for you guys.
All right. Take care, Dana.
Talk to you. Bye-bye.
Okay, moving on. We only have about a half an hour, a little less than that remaining.
We should get all this done then.
Knock this thing out.
Me
Laucus writes in. He says, hope you are all well. I must confess I'm a bit behind on my episodes due to a change in working arrangements, but I'll catch up as fast as I can. See the enclosed news on the Aeroflot incident in Moscow just yesterday. Okay, yeah, this feedback's a little bit old. But he's talking about the Super 100 or 95-100 or whatever at the Moscow airport, and the fiery crash, and 41 lives claimed. He says, what infuriates me is the number of passengers carrying their luggage from the wreckage of the plane in flames, a plane where at least 41 lives were claimed. Their luggage, these people should be charged with attempted murder or something similar, as they were not, or as if they were not as selfish and followed the international protocol of leaving their luggage behind, more people could have been saved. I could say more, but I'll restrain myself to just mention that most faces were caught in camera and could be easily identified and charged. Our hearts and prayers go to those whose lives were lost on this terrible incident. There are a few things more serious and scary than having fire in the cabin during flight. On a lighter note, I'd like to thank two of our fellow APGers, Glenn Towler and Ray Davies, for their presence at the Wings Over Illawarra Air Show, which took place in Sydney this last weekend. Again, this was a few weeks ago.
Good pronunciation, Jeff.
I was a little not sure about it, but I thought I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to say it confidently.
Nice.
I know what I'm talking about. It was great to put some faces in names, and I look forward to more catch-ups in the near future. All the best, Glaucus or G-Man. I'm glad that they got a chance to get together and you got to meet Glenn and Ray. Great blokes.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've got quite a strong New Zealand and Australian contingent over there in Australasia. And there's some great guys amongst them. That's for sure.
We absolutely do. You're right. All right, 6. Christian, send us some audio feedback.
Hi, crew. Christian Base here in Richmond Hill, Ontario, right near Toronto. Just had a giggle when I was reviewing APG 372, and you guys were wrapping up your response to Amar's question about the number of times you abort a takeoff in a year, or as in Captain Nick said, in a career. And Captain Jeff missed an opportunity to use a certain soundbite as Captain Nick was finishing up, and I think Dr. Steph noticed, but I'll insert it for you here.
You know, we just dribbled to a halt in a very unsatisfactory and undramatic manner. But
that's what she said. Christian Base out.
I did hear Steph giggle when you said that, and I thought, nope, too late. Too late to
I
do
know.
it.
Yeah, and it was too hard to rephrase. So
Yeah.
there you go. Mind you, it's nice to feed Steph the odd line.
It is always fun to hear her little chuckle, and we hear that a lot, actually. All right, thank you, Christian. Eugene, let's see. I wrote to you guys a couple of months back with how I got here. Just a quick recap to remind you who I am. My name is Eugene Houston, and I live in Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm a first officer for Roadrunner Airlines. A number of years back, I was flying at Acme Junior, Sky West, when then First Officer Steve Horn, who told me about your podcast. I thought I'd start from the beginning. I'm now at the episode just past your solar eclipse special, and I'm working on catching up. He inspired me to write in a How I Got Here. I was actually just finishing up my recurrent training when Steve texted me to let me know he just heard it, so I skipped ahead on my deadhead from Dallas Love Field, where our training center headquarters is located, back home to Las Vegas. It was episode 368. My first flight off probation, I happened to fall on my 41st birthday, and the flight attendants found out it was my birthday. We just so happened to have a youth traveling choir on board. Yeah, I like to always have them along with me as well, just in case.
Well, it's great when you do a go around, they can sing the song.
It's right. You have to do the rehearsal beforehand just to make sure everybody's in the same. No? Okay. And the flight attendants made a crown with the pretzels and had me stand in front while the plane sang happy birthday to me. I think the little pretzels were the actual bag. I don't think they actually took the pretzels out. I think they were the bags of pretzels that are like a bright orange. I'll put a link to the video in the show notes so you can watch it. But I'm going to play the video so you can hear the youth traveling choir as they serenaded Eugene at the front of the airplane with his crown of pretzel bags. Here we go.
Our first officer, Eugene. Today he turns 41. And we're on fireboard, so we're going to sing him happy birthday. You guys can go happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Eugene. Happy birthday to you.
Oh, wow, it's brilliant.
I have to admit, I watched the movie before I read what he wrote here, and I thought it was just like a bunch of regular passengers. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, they sound great. They were a traveling youth choir. But okay, that makes more sense.
Well, I must admit, whenever I got one of those big bunches of school kids on a trip, or they are sports teams or whatever, and sometimes you can get 30 or 40 of them on an aircraft, I always used to try and make an effort to go back and say hello, find out their history, speak to their teachers, and try and make a mention on a PA, because it's a great, exciting thing for them to be traveling around the world and doing whatever it is they're doing, for choirs visiting or sports teams or whatever. So I was brilliant, and that was fantastic.
Yeah, that was great. And again, I'll put a link to the video so you can see. It's from the vantage point of the back of the airplane pointed forwards, and you can see Eugene up there in the front, and it's a good time. It's almost like being there.
Ah,
all right. Hey, so I'm leaving out of Cleveland a few weeks back. I meant to mention this earlier, but Matt beat me to it. So I'm showing up for the morning flight out of Cleveland, and as I'm approaching the door to the jetway, I see this guy stand up, and I'm thinking, uh-oh, this guy looks like really official. He's wearing I think you were wearing a business suit or something that looked really official. I'm thinking, uh-oh, FAA. I'm going to get a check ride. And the guy comes up and goes, Captain Jeff. And I went, oh, maybe this is not a check ride. And I said, yeah. And he said, hey, this is Matt. I've been listening to your show and blah, 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 blah. And he said more than blah, 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 blah. Let me tell you what he sent in some feedback. So let me take it from that. He says, after a couple of years of ghosting and lurking alongside the show, I finally feel compelled to share feedback, especially after successfully stalking and accosting Captain Jeff in Cleveland on our way to Atlanta in early May. And what a super landing that was. I don't know if he's being facetious or not. As I told Jeff, I'm a years-long precious stone traveler with Acme Airlines, logging around 200 segments per year, mainly for work. And thanks to the APG calendar feature, I was able to finally marry up our schedules for a quick pre-flight greeting, and will hope to do so again. I hope so too as well, Matt. As I've enjoyed the weekly dialogue, I've thought for a while now of the various degrees of separation I have with each of you. Similar to Captain Jeff, I lived in Roswell, Georgia for a few years. It's a lovely place with fond memories, apart from the commuting on Highway 400 bit. I'm also a former countrymate of Captain Nick, having attended school in London for 7 years earlier in life, and I therefore have a special and personal appreciation for the country and its people. I love England, came of age there in my teens, and return frequently. I've also
the girls here are still looking for you.
yeah, you might not want to go back, or at least, like, disguise yourself. I've also greatly enjoyed hearing of Captain Dana's motivation and drive to achieve what he has now achieved. Left seat with a mainline carrier. Well done and kudos. I have a vaguely similar experience, having driven cross-country trucks throughout college to make that financially possible, which always keeping in mind the end game. Happily, it's all worked out well for the both of us. Like Dr. Steph, I'm a marathon runner with 3 races now under my belt in London, St. George, Utah, and Western Ireland. Is that, how would you pronounce that? Connie Marathon? Connie Marathon? I don't know.
I'm not even going to try.
Okay. All of which I would highly recommend. I know London is on your list, and it's not to be missed. I look forward to your updates on the travel and races you take on. Congratulations for your motivation and success while balancing alongside a busy professional schedule. And like all of you, I'm a pilot and IPA drinker, generally performed at separate times, however.
Oh, another drunk. Great.
He says generally performed at separate times. I finally found the time and funds to launch and complete my PPL at age 56, and I'm now diving into IFR training at 58 years. I have a plane on order for delivery in a couple of months and plan to fill many of my post-work days with adventures in it. Ooh, sounds like fun. Can't wait to hear more about that.
Yeah.
My question for the group relates to age and learning. The overall mass of information and learning required to become proficient and secure new ratings seems overwhelming at times, and I often wonder how much of that might have to do with this stage of life. I'm curious of the APG perspective regarding age and learning from a personal experience perspective. I trained with a number of CFIs to achieve my private pilot certificate and found a not surprising processing speed difference among the younger and faster of them compared to my overall learning speed, which is somewhat slower. I definitely observe a more methodical learning process in myself as time goes on, as well as a need for more repetitive training on information and maneuvers in order to maintain the retention required to progress to next steps. Do Captain Jeff and Captain Nick have any real-world experiences to share over the course of their careers where they can compare their processing speeds of flying at a younger age with what they experience today, and how it may noticeably differ, if at all? Do Captain Dana and Dr. Steph have any experience to share on stages of learning and its effect on them personally? Unfortunately, they're both gone. I probably should have saved this for when everybody was here. Sorry about that. I'm sorry to have missed Dana recently in my hometown of Chapel Hill, and will be keeping an eye on the calendar to see if Redo is on tap. Finally, as a plain tales idea, I wonder if Captain Nick has any interest in covering the 30-year anniversary of the saga of United Airlines 232, which met a fateful end in July 1989 following significant flight control failure and a subsequently miraculous saving of many lives by the flight crew during that abominable flight situation. I'd love the professional commentary and assessment of this as an overall subject. If already covered in an earlier episode, feel free to ignore. I don't think you've covered that one, have you?
No, I haven't, but I did write to Matt and say that because it's such a well-known incident, I try and do stories that are not commonly understood or haven't been heard before, because they're different, and I like to bring a different aspect. So I'm unlikely to do that one. But having said that, I did Tenerife, and perhaps it's time to do that, because it was a while ago, but certainly in the States, it's an extremely well-known crash.
I so enjoy the podcast community on my weekly walks to and from the gym and you enhance the experience greatly. Best of luck to Captain Nick on the back recovery, and perhaps I'll find a way to Oshkosh this year. Oh, that'd be great, man.
Oh yeah, man, definitely.
Matt in Chapel Hill, I put a little, he gave me his business card, and he's the chief financial officer of Aurora Plastics. And that's in Ohio, Streetsboro, Ohio. That's why he kind of commutes back and forth between his home in Chapel Hill and his workplace in Ohio. As far as the question that he had for you and I, Captain Nick, age and the ability for us to perhaps not process things as quickly as we once did when we were in our 20s and 30s. I know for sure that's true for me.
Yeah,
that's
I don't know. I don't know whether it's objective or subjective, Jeff, because I think when we're younger, we're much less likely to go to the same lengths that we are now because we understand the full ramifications of not knowing something properly. We're captains, and if we were to retrain on equipment, we'd have to do so at a captain's level, and that's higher than the half of the company. So it is different, and I have absolutely no doubt that we slow down a bit, but on the other hand, we bring a lot of experience and handling capability. So I think that can offset the situation for us. For Matt, of course, he's coming in a flying I say late in life, but he's a mature chap. So yes, I would take things at your own pace. There's no reason for you to rush. There's no reason for you to try and keep pace with others. You're not in the going into the commercial world, so it's not like you're competing for a job. So just do things and work at them until you're comfortable at them, and find an instructor that's sympathetic with that. So he doesn't try and push you too hard, and you don't progress until you feel you've absorbed the previous lessons and are happy to move on.
very good point. I'm absolutely positive that if I got back into a military jet trainer and went out to an area and started doing some of the aerobatics that we used to do, I'd probably black out to begin with the high G forces because physiologically I'm not the same person, and my brain's different as well. But as Captain Nick made a good point of the fact that we may not be able to process and react as quickly as we once did when we were much younger men. I think that our experience more than offsets for that lack of sheer physiological performance.
Yeah, we've seen it before, so we can anticipate much easier than someone who's reaching this for the first time. And in addition, in our world, a fast reaction time can sometimes be a distinct disadvantage. If you react to a situation too fast, you can often end up going down the garden path and leading yourself into worse problems.
I agree. And honestly, one of the, I mentioned earlier on the show what I'm going to do when they finally kick me off kicking and screaming of this airplane. I've been on this airplane I've been more than 17 years now, and so that was the last time that I went through a major school learning an aircraft that I'd never been on before and systems that I'd never heard of, and getting a type rating, which is a very stressful, intense thing. It's been a long time since I've been in the schoolhouse to that level of pressure and focus. And the idea of taking on a new airplane, well, it's not a new airplane, but a new airplane to me, getting a new type rating and everything else is, I have to say, a little daunting. I'm not sure how I'm going to handle that if I make it that, my decision. On the other hand, moving to the Boeing 717, I would use air quotes, Boeing 717, it would be a much easier transition for me because essentially all the systems are the same. There's not a lot of difference in the two airplanes, and it's not a new type rating. It's the same type rating I have 9, which is a DC-9 type rating, never having flown a real DC-9. But anyway, that's just something that is in the back of my mind, and something that will probably play a big part in my decision in the next few years. So we'll see.
Absolutely.
I'm not sure I want that. I'm not sure I want that challenge. Some people go, yeah, go for that challenge. Like Steph would go, oh yeah, I'm up for the challenge, but nah, I'm thinking I'm pretty comfortable where I am right now. So I don't know if I'm going to do that. We'll see.
Well, I think we can all face the challenge if we absolutely have to.
Right.
And we'll get through it because we're good pilots and we know how to do this shit. But you'll have to bleep that. If you don't have to, then life's a lot more comfortable.
Right. There's a lot to be said about being comfortable, isn't it?
Yes, there is. You'll live longer, that's for sure.
Yeah. All right. Moving on quickly. We only have about 10 minutes left. Thank you, Liz, for keeping track of that for us. This is
she's still awake.
Yeah, can you believe it? I thought she was going to go. She said something about going to bed, and I said, "Yeah, nobody
snoring in the sofa by now.
No one's ever been known to fall asleep listening to my voice." In fact, I think I've told you before. Sometimes when I'm editing the show and listening to my own voice, I end up like waking up after I don't know how long the thing's been going on. I'm thinking, okay, I get it. Now I know why people fall asleep. I put myself to sleep. Let's see. Chris Ryerson via Facebook. He says, I was just listening to APG 373, and as always, a fabulous installment of the old pilot's plain tales. I'm a dragonfly biologist. I didn't know there was such a thing. A dragonfly biologist, as well as an av geek. And I wanted to tell Captain Nick he did an excellent job with insect taxonomy. Your pronunciations were spot on.
Well, that was a lucky day.
That's very good. Did you have to go through and kind of look at pronunciations, or did you just kind of...
Yeah, I had to work on those a bit. Yeah,
wow.
about it.
Well, I'm still impressed, and so is he. He says, I'm working my way back through all the old episodes and then sometimes jump forward to the new ones. I've gone back to 295 now in just a month and a half. It's a wonder I get any sciencing done around here when I'm so busy thinking about airplanes. I think that qualifies as a serious case of APG syndrome, don't you? Yeah, I do. Thank you for keeping my eyes on the sky and my head in the clouds. Fair winds, smooth landings, and gallons of beer to you all. Ooh, love, Chris.
Oh, that's
thank
very
you,
kind,
Chris.
The next round's on you. But thank you very much indeed for your very kind comments. Much appreciated.
Yeah, quite a compliment. Did he say where he was? No. Yeah.
He's in a mental asylum somewhere.
Very, very clever of you. So we can't figure out where he is so we can get our free beer.
Yeah.
We love you too, Chris. We really do. Let's see. Quickly, Murillo. I think that's the way you pronounce his name. My name is Murilo.
Murillo?
Murillo, maybe. And this is my second feedback, being listened to you guys for 4 years now, and having met Captain Jeff and Captain Nick about 3 years ago in a meetup at the DeKalb Peachtree Airport. I do remember this, Murillo. We will send a picture we took that day, or will send a picture. So he did. We'll put that in the show notes. Look at how young we were back then, Nick.
Yeah, exactly. Look, I'm slim.
Yeah, me too.
What happened?
I don't know. And that was only 3 years ago. That does not bode well for the future, does it?
No, it does not.
Yeah. Anyway, I used to fly a Hawker 800 in Brazil, but decided to come to America to live the American dream and haven't been able to fly again. So you guys are the closest from aviation I can get here. About the feedback on the APG 374 about oxygen mask. Oh, see, I see what he's doing here. He compliments us, and then he starts in with his criticism. So here we go. About the feedback on APG 374 about oxygen masks. I used to work at Acme's customer service, and I need to say that you guys got a little below the 50% mark on this one. Yeah, I know. Can you believe it?
Again?
I know. At least on Acme, all airplanes with 3 and 3 seat configurations, there are 4 masks on each side. But on the aircraft with 3 and 2 configuration, like the ones that Dana and I fly, there are 4 masks on the side that there are 3 seats and only 2 on the side that only have 2 seats. That's why lap children cannot sit on the 2-seat side. That makes a lot of sense, actually. And I didn't know that.
Well, I mean, how often do you go and open those things and look at it?
Never.
Exactly. I mean, it's like one of those things you probably learn about in a book once, and that's it.
Yeah, I don't recall even learning about that, but maybe I need to look it through in our volume 2 where that information would be. Take a look at that.
You only need a 50% pass mark in Acme, don't you? So that was probably one of the 50% you got wrong.
Well, old codgers like me, it's more like 30%, I think. Anyway, he says, thanks a lot for the effort you guys have putting this podcast together. I can tell you that it's the best part of my week. When I'm working on something, I don't like it all, but these 3 hours, I feel like flying again.
Well, I can assure you, Morello, there's no effort required on my half part at all.
Yeah, and mine either. It shows. If there were effort involved, then we probably would have stopped doing this some time ago.
Yeah.
Anyway, so thank you again for your nice compliments and for setting us straight. I think this one that Jared's about the hypoxia discussion and talking about this system on the 350 would probably need a little bit more time.
Yeah, Steph would be a good candidate for that.
Yeah. Larry has a quick one here from Airways Magazine. He says, what, wrong airplane picture? And it shows us, there's a picture of a drone, and the headline says, Delta announces New York, JFK, Mumbai flights.
I don't think DJI are quite up to doing that yet.
I don't think the battery technology is quite there yet, and I think it would be kind of difficult to carry many passengers on that drone.
Mind you, with that GoPro, you get some good pictures.
Yeah, it looks like it's got one of those GoPro cameras on there.
Yep.
That's why you said that. But anyway, now that I'm thinking about what you just said, so if you ignore the headline there for the or caption, right below it, it says Frankfurt Main International Airport, Germany was forced to cancel 143 flights and divert 48 incoming aircraft because of a drone sighting within the airport's perimeter. So obviously that's the reason why they had this drone.
That's a significant event. Diverted 48 aircraft.
I don't remember when this happened.
No, I didn't hear about anything. Whereas the Gatwick incident,
it was very
went worldwide.
Right. Interesting how the Germans were able to keep that under wraps, huh?
Yeah, I wonder how they did that.
Obviously, the person that was responsible for the copy on this particular thing put the wrong headline in there, but it is funny. Thank you, Larry, he always comes up with these little nuggets. Do appreciate that. Again, this next one, 13, I think we need a little bit more time for. Here's a quick one from Brooke. Brooke Spradley. She says, I recently discovered your podcast and I'm already addicted. The good thing about recently discovering you guys is that I have a lot of episodes to experience. I'll be sad once I'm caught up. It'll be hard to wait a week for the new one to be released. Let's not focus on that, though. I'm thrilled to have all these previously released episodes available. Thank you for all the hard work and all the hours that you guys put into this amazing podcast. Much respect and appreciation for you all. Brooke,
lovely thing to say. And I am just a fan of yours because of that beautiful dog in the background with its pink earmuffs on. Is that cool?
Do you think that those are, don't they make like custom earmuffs and stuff like that for animals? I wonder if that's what those are.
Well, I'm assuming because it might be a bit noisy in the airplane, and the dog has pink earmuffs on.
That is great.
Sweet.
Thank you, Brooke. I think she lives on the south side, and like they live in an air park or something. So this probably their airplane. That's pretty cool.
Oh, really?
She's there with her dog and some other dude, probably her husband.
She doesn't say what the airplane is. I don't know.
No. Well, that's not important. Brooke, right back. Tell us what the airplane is.
Yeah, please.
All right. Okay, and I think we can squeeze in one more, maybe. Let's see.
So no, that makes to the bishop.
Yeah. You know what? Nope, I don't think so. I think everything else here is going to take a little bit too much time. So this would be a good time to end the show. We're almost at the 3 hour point. I know. Well, we promise we'll get back to these that we missed on today's show, and we're going to cover a lot more. And if you want to send us feedback, you can do that by email, feedback@airlinepilotguy.com. You can use your Airline Pilot Guy app on your iPhone or your Android device. And those are free apps, and there's a way for you to send us feedback that way. In fact, that's what Brooke used when she sent us this feedback. you can use on the website. We have SpeakPipe, where you can click a button and it will use whatever microphone you have on whatever equipment you're using to access it. And you can send us some audio feedback, or you can just use your little sound voice memos app or whatever on your smartphone and then attach it to your feedback at airlinepilotguy.com. So many ways to send us feedback. We're also on the social meds, the social meds, as I like to say, the social media channels. And Nick, you want to take a stab at that?
Yeah, sure. Can I first put a tiny advert in?
Yeah.
BA cabin crew, listen up. If you're a BA cabin crew member, flight attendant, then, and particularly from the golden years, inverted commas, air quotes, from of BA, on the 6th of June, there's going to be a meetup of you guys. And there's a lot of folks attending, about 120 at the moment. And it's, I was told about it by Dave Self, who's a radio amateur like myself. And he said, if any of your listeners are BA cabin crew and want details, can you please write to us, APG crew, and then we will forward the emails to Dave Self. And social media, right? Facebook, APG, Airline Pilot Guy is the tag you want to add on to the normal preamble of facebook.com/. And if you want to have us on Twitter, if you pardon the expression, you can get us at APG Crew.
Very good. And we are also on Slack, and Hillel is going to tell us about that.
APG listeners, please join us on our Slack team. Slack is a communication, coordination, and sharing platform that works on your mobile, laptop, or browser. On Slack, we share ideas and news. We suggest episode and Playing Tales topics. We plan events and meetups. To get into the Slack team, please email me at slack@airlinepilotguy.com. That's SLACK, Sierra Lima Alpha Charlie Kilo @airlinepilotguy.com. Or send me a tweet with your preferred email address to @Hillel, and I'll send you an invitation. That's Hillel, spelled HI11E1. Hotel India 11 Echo 1, and see you in Slack.
Thank you, Hillel. Become an APG slacker, just like Nick and Hillel and so many others.
Well, now I'm retired. I'm a big slacker.
A very, very good
big slacker.
Yeah, no, you know what? I
knew where you were going there.
I think that you have been busier since you have been quote unquote retired than you were when you were flying trips.
Yeah, it appears the act of retirement is actually quite a busy time.
Okay. Well, anyway, yeah, and again, just a quick mention: the Airline Pilot Guy Show website, where you can listen to the podcast. You can find when we're doing the show live. You can click on that, and it takes you to the YouTube live page, and you can join all the great people in the chat room while we're recording live, and click on the calendar, and you can see the APG community calendar, and that's where we put the notices for when we think we're going to be recording the show and at what time, and other meetups and stuff. So it's a great way to keep track of everything going on within the community. Information about the APG crew and Plane Tales. I mentioned that earlier. We have a page dedicated to the wonderful Plane Tales. We have an APG library. Our librarian Tiffany kind of manages that. And
I must pass on this book I've got.
Yeah, you should. She'll probably do it before you know it. She'll send me an email and say, I've added that book to the library.
Vietnam to Western Airlines by Bruce Cowie.
There you go.
Thank you.
And information about the Coffee Fund, APG store, where we have merchandise like T-shirts and that kind of thing. And that's about it. I mean, what more could you want, really? And until next time,
free IPA.
Oh yeah, yeah. I don't see that page on here. We
With
need to
every
add that. A way for you to send us IPA.
Yes, that would be perfect.
With a recording of every show. We'd appreciate that too. Anyway, but the Coffee Fund works as well. So, with that, thank you for listening, subscribing, reviewing, and all that. And until next time, wishing you clear skies, unlimited visibility, and tailwinds. Talons, Douglas.
Cheers, everybody. Bye, folks.
Bye. Wow.
I can remember what Dana says. He says "hasta la vista," doesn't he?
And then he says, "Have a good day."
Yeah.
It's like you didn't really know what to say there, did you?
No, I forgot the end was coming.
Hasta la vista, baby. Yeah.
Excellent.
So yeah,
we got through a bunch there. Well done, Jeff.
I think when it's just the two of us, we were able to get through pretty quickly.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mind you, there's some interesting ones there. I'm looking forward to chatting about some of those. It wasn't that one. It was. Oh, okay. I can't see it now. I might have deleted it already. Damn.
The
hypoxia one.
The automatic
Yes.
descent on the
350.
350.
Yeah, very
That's
clever.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Although I keep thinking to myself, I'm hoping they have all kinds of safeguards so the system doesn't somehow just fire inadvertently. You wouldn't want that to happen.
Whoops.
Like, whoa, what's going on?
There's a little wire cross over the button so that you'll never ever press it
Yeah,
accidentally.
but I mean like something internally or something, like
Oh, damn. Nah, of course not.
Never happens with an airbag.
Actually, knowing Airbus, they'll have 3 interlocks that'll prevent it going down.
Yeah.
Like you've got to have a cabin pressure reducer, blah blah blah. I don't know. We'll find out. I won't find out. I'll ask somebody though.
Yeah. I think it's kind of an interesting question from JJ Pittsburgh about the about radar enforced or speed enforcement by airplanes. How exactly does that work? So I think that's
well. Actually, we should probably get on to. Don't we know someone in the police force that flies around?
You do out in Northern California.
Yeah, that's right.
And can't remember his name right offhand. But did you? He didn't take you up in an airplane ride.
No, I never got flying.
Okay,
I've got a beautiful challenge coin.
Mhm.
So and we certainly met up a few times, but I never got. I remember the lovely. Yeah, that's right. Thanks, Liz. It was Jan. Remember the lovely video he took of me getting airborne? I'm going to treasure that.
Yeah,
because that was a one in a lifetime opportunity for him to film me with his special police cameras underneath his Australian Gips. I think that's what it was. Aircraft.
Yeah.
And that is a lovely piece of film. And then Nev beautifully edited it for me. So that's just one of those memories I'll be able to look back when I'm an old man and revel in.
Absolutely. So
they'll play it at my funeral.
You'll never die. Brandon Gonzalez, the host of Podcasting on a Plane, sent us some great audio feedback, and I wish I'd had time to play it on today's show because it was on the last show that we had this discussion about standard radio phraseology. So he had a couple of cents worth to add to that. And so we have all that and more next time. So thank you, everybody in the chat room for joining us and hanging out with us tonight. I'm going to have to shut it down because I need to grab a bite to eat and then get all this stuff put away and get some sleep before the day of flying tomorrow. So as always, we love you and hope to see you again next week when we record episode 377.
Looking forward to it. And bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.